Everyone, special meeting of council budget, Friday, March 6th, 2026. Call to order, 111, call to order, late items, we don't have any, adoption of minutes, we don't have any, public input, I don't think we have any. No delegations, no unfinished business, no bylaws, new business. 8.1, decisions for the 2026-2030 financial plan and related bylaws. We have a recommendation there, but I won't read that bylaw at this point in time. So, who am I handing this off to get us rolling? Over to you, CFO. Thank you. Off you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. So today we're trying to accomplish several things. So council has expressed an interest in reviewing the city's organizational chart for staffing. That's been integrated into each director's summary page. Council's also expressed an interest in reviewing the line items that would have rolled up to the service level tree maps and the line item pie graphs from the December presentation. From the staff perspective, we need to decision the operational and capital projects that have not yet appeared in a bylaw. And then from my perspective, I need some guidance on some of the strategic decisions that need to get made in terms of water parcel taxes, sewer parcel taxes, and as well how we want to manage our development uplift or non-market change that might appear on future tax rolls. So as we start to see some development activity in the community, there's an opportunity to decision how that gets applied. That can be used to create some reserve contributions that we haven't contemplated, so we don't have anything out of the municipal levy that's incremental this year so far. We can also use that to offset some of the tax burden on the base or some percentage thereof. And so we need some input on that as we progress into bylaws. So to get us there, an alternative lens has been applied on the operating budget, grouping costs into sunk costs, which is primarily our debt, the people costs in our organization, costs that are difficult to influence, so natural gas, electricity, ICBC insurance rates, etc., and then costs that are possible to influence. And there's a really wide spectrum on that, ranging from facility closures on one end to some of the recreational programming events that we might not have contracts on, like music in the park, that can be decisioned more readily in the short term. And I've got a page in a few minutes to try and characterize that spectrum. The cover sheets are also an opportunity to remind us of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've already pulled out of the operating budget over the last couple of years. And I think we didn't really connect with that during earlier conversations this year. So it's a good opportunity to revisit some of the progress that's been made there. And then at the end, I need to update council for an item for our risk register and get some guidance as to how we want to deal with it. So the provincial budget announcements had some fun in store for many across the province, including us as a municipality, as we think about the incremental PST that will now be applicable on accounting services, engineering services that will impact both the operational budget and the capital budget. So that cost is coming in Q4. So we can decide to take a high level swag at a provision now, or we can look at, what costs are incurred up to summer next year and try and get a forecast going as to what's left to spend and what will attract PST at that time. And we can do it as an amendment on the 2026 budget later in the year. So that decision also needs to be made at the end of today. Any questions before we get going?
Councilor Charney.
Could I just have a ballpark figure of what you right now are looking at a percent in tax increase? From your perspective right now, what's your goal?
So the target was 6%. We provided two options in the December meeting. There was a path where we did 5 years at a smoothing rate of 4.9%, trying to even out fluctuations that'll happen when the ladder truck arrives in 2030. Or there's an opportunity to actually tax for the actual spend that will be incurred in 2026, which would be slightly lower.
Okay, so we could just
kind of in that 4.5 to 4.9 is where we are today. The public feedback that we got was overwhelmingly in support of a smoothing path that tries to even out some of the fluctuations. So council will have seen that in the survey results and at the open house in terms of the democracy. That's still a decision that council makes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Egan.
Yeah, thank you. The only thing when you were talking about PST, how does that really affect our budget? Because it's PST collected and then it's paid out again.
No, so GST, we submit rebates for, and we get that benefit back.
I'm not talking about GST.
No, I know, but PST works differently. So that is actually booked to all of the individual line items. There's no rebate on that for us as a
No, but
municipality.
you still pay it back out to the province. You collect it and then you pay it back out.
So this is more on the payment side. So as we incur costs for services, we're going to now pay that cost where we haven't historically had to budget for it. So for accounting services, audit fees, engineering services, we've never paid PST. We've only ever paid GST, which we're allowed to recover. We're now going to start paying 7%. So there's an automatic 7% increase in our budget for all of those costs that will now attract PST. Historically, certain services were exempt from PST. Now we're going to pay that additional 7% starting in Q4. So it is an
Okay.
incremental
Yeah,
cost
okay.
of the organization. Does that make sense? Okay. So in your package, the first couple pages here, Councillor Charney had provided a sketch for a table that might be a helpful view. So I've taken that draft budget reference table and created it with all the exact numbers for reference for all of council to have. Second page is some characterization on the possible influence spectrum. So it ranges from, facility closures as we think about chemical supplies for the pool. There's also time horizon and contract impacts. So those decisions might not be available in the short term where we have active contracts in place. So think about the Bailey House, the museum, etc., clay banks. Those aren't decisions that might be available today. They might be available when a contract expires. So still possible to influence, but might not be possible to influence for this budget cycle. It might be a future year. Operational impact. So there's some things like at the fire hall, for example, like the oxygen cylinders are part of their material and supply budget. Technically possible, maybe, but carries a significant operational impact associated with the decision. And then there's some regulatory considerations that might still be contained within contracted services and materials and supplies. So elevator inspections are something that's still going to be required. So the total contracted service budget might have some possible influence, but there still could be regulatory considerations within that. Kind of in that middle ground, you've got some things that might impact workforce culture, for example. So we think about, the December dinner for staff and council. That's a decision that can be made, but there's impacts to workforce and culture associated with that. There might be some activities within that possible influence spectrum that are associated with revenue generating activities. So contracted services at the Civic Center include all the linen cleaning, for example, and some of those might have a revenue component. So we have to kind of think about both aspects as we're making decisions. Then there's the previous budget reductions. So we've tried to highlight some of those on some of the summary pages. For example, in HR, we took a $50,000 reduction in contracted services and recruitment. There's not much left there. We also reduced the director position. So I think that total was something like 200,000 that's already come out. There might not be a whole lot left. And then risk management. So some of the costs that we incur are trying to reduce, the potential bigger costs in the future. So if we think about, costs for security alarm monitoring and some of the upgrades that we've made in that space, monitoring city assets. And then towards the green, it's costs that might not be decisioned yet. So those are a little easier for us to influence in the short term. So think about the ECDEV advertising proposal or the proposal for funding for tourism within the Nicola Valley. Then there's costs that are associated with levels of service directly by council. So think about community cleanup costs and Canada Day celebrations, things like that. There's no other regulatory considerations. It's really a direct level of service decision by council. And then there's the capacity extension and scope activities. So think about things like the IT co-op and what we're allowed to do with that extra body for certain terms within the year. For example, our most recent IT co-op was supporting asset management. And as we've seen, there's big financial repercussions for not making progress on that space. We had $500,000 withheld for a period of time last year until we had demonstrated sufficient progress. Our gas tax is now directly hooked to progressing asset management as well. And that's a 400,000 revenue for the city. So it really is in our best interest to make progress that's tied to some of those funding sources. So I say all of that to try and provide some characterization of what possible to influence carries. It's not all discretionary like the flower budget. All those decisions got made in previous cycles. So there's still going to be, bigger impacts associated with it. There's still a few things that are easier to influence, right? Like Music in the Park is a decision that doesn't have contracted spend. So that can be decisioned more readily for 2026. Any questions on that?
Moving on.
Okay. So the fire department is up first. We have a cover sheet that walks through some of the sunk costs, the people costs, the organizational chart, and then some of the bucketing around costs as it relates to possible to influence and influence. There's also all of the line items that have been provided. Obviously, you wouldn't present line by line, so it really is up to council to direct the questions and direction for the conversation.
Thank you. Just paper. So if anybody has any questions on the sheets in front of you, light your mic up. Chief is here to answer them for you. Counselor Chern.
I don't have any questions for fire. I think what the fire chief is proposing, his expenses and everything fall in line. I don't think we can become chintzy on fire. That's one area that we need is a strong fire protection unit. And I think we do have that. And I would like to keep the status quo.
Anyone else? Counselor Egan.
Where are we looking?
Bottom of, well, it says 26 cost highlights versus 23 budget.
So that's showing, we've tried to characterize what costs have already been removed from the budget in every page. So that's showing that our 2026 costs are lower than 2023, which is kind of our anchor year by 100,000.
Okay, great.
Those costs have already been removed from the operating budget.
Counselor Baxter.
I want to make sure the fire department has all the necessary. I've looked into it, turnout gear is expensive. And I want to make sure from the chief that we have everything that we can to protect our community and that we have funds that will be available to help with that, because I know it is very expensive.
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor. We've been well supported by council currently and in the past with respect to our turnout gear. So we do have a annual replacement, and we have, with respect to our asset management, as you know, the gear has a 10-year lifespan. And so we have year to year, we know how many sets that we have to replace, and that has been budgeted for in the operating side of the budget.
Counselor Rogan.
Thank you. So I feel that there is always room for improvement regarding savings. So there should be a way that we can allocate some savings here without affecting the delivery of the services, in this case, fire protection. Question to CFO. I want to understand if right now there are some payments for some of the equipment, correct, that we are making payments.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can refinance to be able to save some money there? I'm just asking the question to see if there's an opportunity there.
So we're on the equipment financing program, we've already locked into that 5-year term.
So it's a fixed loan that we cannot make any changes until the maturity date.
Correct. The interest rates might fluctuate, so they may pass on some savings, but it can also work the other way where we end up with a balloon payment at the end. So depending on where we took out the loan and the direction of interest rates during that 5-year period, there's some equipments that we end up with tens of thousands of dollars on the last payment if interest rates between where we took out the debt and where they are now have changed. So it does go both ways.
It's not fixed rate, so we are paying variable rates.
I'll have to look at a case by case basis. Yeah.
So Chief, so direct question to you. So is there any area that we can tap into some savings here?
I guess my response to that is we've done that, and we've done that with respect to things like the work experience program, where you literally have workers in the hall that are not being remunerated until such time there is an incident. And I've shown council in the past, there's a value to that. It's $500,000 to $600,000 worth of labor that we're getting. And on the paid on call side, we have a system where we have 144,000 hours of scheduled on call hours for those individuals, but they don't receive any remuneration while they're on call. So we run a fairly lean system with respect to staffing. We have a nominal amount of career staff to support that system and to keep that value and to keep that system running, which I feel is the most cost-effective means of running our organization. If we were to even pay $2 an hour for pager pay, which BC Ambulance paid to their paramedics years ago, which they get paid quite a bit more, we'd be looking at another $300,000 of expenditure just related to that. So when I look at that, you know, you can always go in and look at individual line items and we not buy something this year, but the nice thing is how Kevin has it laid out, and we're truly looking 5 years ahead, which we weren't in the past, is we know what some of our major expenditures are, and we can year to year balance those expenditures. And so we know we have some big ones coming up, replacement of firefighting foam and things like that in the future. And I just feel like we're reviewing things quite thoroughly, and I just don't see a place where we can do that unless we just say we're not replacing equipment or we're changing the standard protective equipment, things like that. We're going to exceed that, and then in that case, we're going to incur more risk.
Thank you, Chief. So we talk about expenses now. Let's talk about revenue. Is there any other revenue opportunity within your department that we have not explored?
So we never used to look at the fire department revenue in the past, and now we bring that to light. So, you know, you have the TNRD agreement that brings over $300,000. We have mostly our paid on call firefighters going out to provincial deployment, and once their wages and stuff are paid, we have the net result of that, and that's going into reserves now. Like we are creating revenue where in the past we never did, and to the tune of about $500,000 or $600,000 a year, offsetting our operational costs in one way or another. We have grant funding that's offsetting some career salary. So we could only sell more services, and then that directly affects the pressure on the department and our ability. And I think we are probably, for the size of our department and the amount of career staff we have, we are now stretched. And I think we're doing a pretty good job actually of bringing in revenue, especially when you add provincial deployment, which has now become more of a business for us than, you know, just getting called by our neighbors. We actually plan on going on deployment to bring in revenue.
I think, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but we look at the TNRD deal about every 2 years, do we not? About every 2 years? About this time next year, we'd be looking at making some changes there?
Thank you, Worship. I believe it's a 5-year contract, but we are only a year or two away from renewing that.
Councilor Petrosi.
Thanks, Chief. Getting onto the provincial deployment, how do we get reimbursed for the usage of our trucks when our trucks actually are deployed in another community and the hours used?
Yeah, so the request comes from the province, and under the memorandum of interagency agreement reimbursement rates, the truck gets charged an hourly rate. This year, a fire engine bills out at $717 an hour. And they usually work a minimum of 12-hour days, and a maximum deployment is 14 days. And sometimes they can extend and whatnot, but last year we did 2 deployments. I don't have the number on the top of my head of on the gross side of what we brought in, but that's essentially how that works. We also have local deployments where the Merritt Fire Zone will also call us. We've been out on the highway for transport truck fires and different things like that, and it's through the same billing model. So above our fuel and wages for our paid on call, all that ends up or has ended up in reserves.
Okay. Could you speak to the, I think we talked about breathing apparatus in the filling station, refilling station, actually replacing all that. Is that still in the works or?
So we were fortunate last year to receive a grant through UBCM, which paid for the replacement of the breathing apparatus filling station.
Okay.
So that has been complete.
Right. And that's for the, I guess, the new style tanks is.
This was just more modernization.
Oh, okay.
We had a just about 20-year-old compressor, breathing air compressor that was failing. It had been rebuilt a couple times. So now we have a piece of equipment that we will think will go another 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And basically, I don't think we'll outgrow it as a department over the next long while. So
Right. Okay. Thank you.
What's the lifespan on the Scott Air Packs?
we have put 15 years, but I know the last time that we bought air packs, we extended that because there was going to be a standard change within 2 years. And I think whoever's responsible for that in the future would probably do the same thing, that you would probably incur that risk for a short time just to ensure that the new breathing apparatus that you purchase met the current standard so that they'd have more longevity.
So with the filling and refilling of those tanks, do you have to get them pressure tested or every so often?
Yes, they have to be hydrostat tested periodically.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Charney, again.
Under capital, the engine 2, it's $1.8 million. Is that finally, and it's supposed to be delivered September 26?
That's correct.
Engine 2.
Yes.
So, and that is the final payment on engine 2? We're finished? Kaput?
That's what we're premising for borrowing. I haven't seen a final invoice, given that it has not been delivered.
Okay. Okay, so that could be a little more.
We're not anticipating it to be,
Okay,
but yes.
okay. That's all I have.
Yeah, this is.
No, just shut yourself. There you go.
Sorry, this is a very small amount of money that you generate. But I was just wondering, how many nuisance calls that do you get a year?
Well, we've been putting all the survival fires and everything like that under nuisance, so there's a lot of them.
Survival fire?
So that's
Homeless
the
camps.
unhoused people who maybe start a fire in a stairwell or something like that. We get a call, we go and extinguish it. And so there's a lot. I would say, I don't know, every month there's at least 5 to 6 anyway.
Okay, because I noticed in somewhere I saw in our notes that you changed the amount of free visits you would get for that to 1. And I I think it used to be two, but I'm not sure when it was changed.
And I guess that is another type of call. That is when somebody has a security system, a TELUS or whatnot, and they send false alarms through. That becomes a nuisance, and we have a method of applying fees and charges to that. But we also group in those other nuisance calls, which are fires down at the river at Clay Banks and whatnot. So yeah, generally, there's no way to recover
Okay,
for those.
okay, thanks.
Any other questions on the fire department? Moving on. Thank you, chief.
So Linda Brick is not here for corporate services, but we do prepare the budget together, so I will do my best in her absence.
So Kevin, I just have one question. The IT co-op terms. Are we still doing that now that we have a full-time? Are we still going to be bringing co-ops in? Kind of like a OJT on the job training are we going to still continue to do that?
That's still the intention.
Okay.
That is an area that is open for discussion. We could certainly reduce the length of those terms, but still feel there's significant benefits to the municipality for having that extra capacity on projects.
Do we still connect with TRU to work on a situation where they handle some of the funding for that position or?
Not
No.
for the IT.
Okay.
No.
I was just wondering. Thank you. No, sure.
Did you see me?
You're the one.
When I look at the budget as a whole, there's two areas where I think that we could maybe look at. One is contracted services and the others is personnel. On general government operating, 16%, which relates to $247,173.76 is on contracted services. Is there any way that we can look at the individual contracted services and make some cuts there? That's one point I have. I just wanted to.
Can you give me
feedback
the
on-
GL reference of the line that you're looking at, Councillor Charney?
I'm just gone back to this the information given out here. Whenever we were December 10th, I think we were given this information. And it goes back to contracted services, which is 16% of their budget.
When we're talking contracted
General
services,
government.
what are we talking contracted services?
That's what I don't know. Well, that's what I'm trying to get a grasp on for corporate general government operating. 16% goes into contracted services.
So that does include our IT professional that supports our IT manager. So that's Aaron as well. Contracted services for corporate services even includes things like hosting the website, so that cost goes away, the website comes off the server. So some of it may or may not feel truly discretionary in nature.
No, this is probably the wrong question for that.
So it also includes the election costs as well, right? So we've been saving for over the last 3 years for this fall's election. That's a contracted service within corporate services, $45,000. We have been putting that money aside, so there is no blip in the tax rate this year for the first time. We've been saving for 3 years for that. So while the cost is part of the 16%, it has been saved for.
Do contracted services, is that also cleaning our public washrooms in the parks? Is that part of that as well, or is that?
In other portfolios, but I
That's
think,
what I thought.
yes,
Okay.
so this is just corporate services.
Okay, thank you.
So there's no other areas in the contracted services that we could look at.
So we can certainly go through them and make sure that we've discussed all of the lines individually. I've tried to give a few highlights across communications, election, and IT, but let's just triple check. So bottom up on the general government side, you can see that the election contracted service, the 45,000 I've marked as gray, very difficult to influence given that that cost is pretty fixed. So the IT contracted service is 75,000. So that does include a professional that supports the city on a partial time basis.
CFO, are these contracted services also covering our licensing for software?
No, so IT software is 270,000. It's marked in gray. So it's not part of contracted services, it's part of other, which is why corporate services has such a large other.
Okay, thank you.
Within communications, so the 15,000 for contracted services there does support hosting the city's website. The other big blip that'll be in that 16% is the SharePoint project. So the standard budget within corporate services for contracted support is 15,000. For 2026, it includes the $100,000 SharePoint project, and that's part of the reason why contracted services is so large for next year. I think that covers all.
Hold on. Are you done?
Go ahead. I'll come back.
Let's read it.
I just want to know what are the corporate officer contracted services?
So it
It says it's
includes,
contingency fund, but
the 15,000, like other than,
25,000.
what's the GL, Councilor Regan? Sorry.
It's near the bottom of the page. It's just under that one middle box where it says possible influence covers a range, and then right below that it says corporate officer contracted services / contingency.
So again, we're trying to highlight the costs that have already been taken out of the budget. So that 25,000, it was a
Okay,
reduction
sorry,
in
that little
2023.
negative is very hard to see.
So the budget is 15,000 now. It would have been 40,000 in 2023.
Okay,
So
thank
we're trying to highlight the ones that have already
Yeah.
been reduced.
I have a quick question, on one of these sheets here. There's no number, so I think it's the third sheet in. It says, 15,000 community cleanup unsightly premises not recoverable.
Mhm.
How do we not recover that? Is that somebody that has been fined and has just refused to pay it?
No, so it's when it's not associated with the property. So any ones that are associated directly with the property, we can place it on their property tax.
Okay.
But if there's an abandoned RV that the scrap metals won't take and council directs us to remove it, that cost does get paid by the ratepayer.
Okay, thank you. I did not know.
So that's that bucket to try and manage those blips in the year.
Thank you very much. Good to know now. Councillor Charney, your light's still on.
Yes, it is still on. Under other for general government operating, 3% is spent on council for granting aid, sponsorships and scholarships. So I know that granting aid, we went down to 25,000.
Correct.
So we're doing 21,000 each year on sponsorships and scholarships. So sponsorships is the rodeo, is that correct?
So there's a
what you
$5,000 provision to be able to sponsor the rodeo.
Okay.
And then there's the $2,000 for the school district 58 scholarships that council awards. So the total sponsorship budget is 7,000. And then there's 25,000 for grant and aid.
Okay, so that doesn't add up to 46,000 though. No, but it's a breakdown. It's a breakdown. 3%.
So it's
It's
3%
grant.
for all council items. So it says grant and aid, sponsorships,
And
scholarships
scholarship.
and protocol. So in the very top of your line by line is all of the council costs, and I've listed them all in green because they're solely at your direction. So the very first section of line by lines from 173,000 down to 7,000 is all of the council costs. So that includes 7,000 for sponsorships, 25 for grant and aid, 10,000 for protocol, 45,000 for conferences, etc.
Let me have that here. So are we still on corporate services?
Yep.
Under protective services operating, which is our bylaw on animal control, we have 85% on personnel. That includes, you've got a bylaw supervisor and a bylaw officer 3. I thought we voted as council, we were not having a second bylaw officer.
So I guess I'll take the opportunity to just make a point here. I have tried to keep everything exactly the same as what was presented to you in December so that the documents tie together. I do recognize that there has been decisions, and we're going to open up the bylaw and try and factor in all your decisions today, plus the other changes that you've made in one go. But I didn't want to have a document from
Okay,
December
okay.
disconnected from what you're seeing
Okay.
today. So I do recognize that.
Okay, so if we take, so this second bylaw officer is being included in our budget. Now, we have voted to take it off, so I mean, that reduces now our budget, correct?
If you elected to do that for the whole 5-year term, I believe that was maybe just a 2026 decision to be revisited for future years. So you would have to direct us on whether that's a 5-year decision or a 1-year decision. And then because we're thinking about doing the smoothing tax rate, if that position is in the 4 out of the 5 years, we'd want to factor that into the tax rate still. If it's a full 5-year decision that we're not going to have that position, then I can remove it out of all of it.
I'm just trying to figure out how to reduce.
2026.
CEO?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I was expecting this to go here, and I just want to point out, and this is probably a very important decision point, especially based on the feedback you got from the budget open house and the questionnaires that we sent out. Obviously, it's a fairly important subject matter for the community. We've had lots of discussions about service levels related to shopping carts and homeless encampment cleanup. So I really want you to focus on that particular level of service within corporate services and bylaw protection to make sure you're confident that this is what you want to do. We'll work with you either way on it, obviously, but the removal of that supervisor position has a fairly large impact on the operation of bylaw in general. When done right, we're hoping it's going to have a really good improvement to the level of service and provide you more, what's the right word for this, satisfaction with how things are being done. But I just want to make sure that eyes wide open when we're doing this, when we do cut it, that you understand that there's going to be a lot of things that we're not going to be able to get to. So.
I understand that too, and I think if we had 1,000 people respond, but when there's only 8 out of 7,500, I think that's a little skewed. I would just like to see more efficiency in the department and leave it at 1 bylaw officer right now and try and make a saving there in our budget.
Well, I think right now, if you make a decision on a 5-year, you're making a decision for the next council that's coming in.
Yes, and they can also reverse that decision
They can.
also.
Councilor Ogle?
Thank you. So, if I'm not mistaken, we also consider the part-time position for the bylaw officer coming from the grant, correct? So even if we go with 1 person right now, and my recommendation will be just for 2026, so we can revisit. We have to pretty much see how is that going to perform for this fiscal year, and when we have to when new council needs to review the next budget meeting, so they will see if they need to go over, to extend that position or not. So, but keep in mind that we will have the part-time position, right?
CEO?
Thank you, Worship. Was the decision then to maintain a seasonal through that? Is that it? And that's what we need to make sure
I think
CFO has this direction on this to make.
I think the vote was for seasonal. I think it was a
Seasonal.
4-2. I think it was a 4-2 vote.
Yes.
Some of us voted against it. Some of them voted for it, but I do believe it was carried. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the test just to make sure if you're in on this stuff, we provide CFO the direction on this and we'll work with it.
And I think also too, when we talk about a bylaw supervisor, for myself, I would like a bylaw supervisor that can only supervise bylaw, but put a uniform on and also patrol at the same time and help out, not somebody who sits behind of a desk and answers phone calls. So I think if we can start doing the Swiss Army knife situation on some of these positions, such as this, where we have a seasoned supervisor that can get in and help, I think that's something that we should be considering. Councilor Petrosi?
And that was the plan that the director had provided, so.
Councillor
Yeah,
Troisi?
just echoing Councillor Ogwen's position on this, the seasonal position, and it was grant funded, I understand, right? So, and we did vote to go that route, so.
Yeah, the spouse, I didn't vote for him.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Charney, your light's on. Councillor Ogun, your light's on.
Mine, yes. Olin first.
Councillor Ogun again?
Can you expand, CEO, on the protocol? So that's line 1580, the 10,000. Could you explain what's included?
So it's basically all of council's discretionary type budget. So if there's a meal brought in for a council meeting, if there's costs for open houses, if you have the need to purchase a gift for someone visiting, it's everything that you have to work with to cover all discretionary type items.
So have we been under budget or over budget in the past years?
So what we've been doing is trying to consolidate everything into that pot so that we can try and live within the $10,000.
So,
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. I'll comment after. Go ahead.
no, that's fine.
I do believe that we took our discretionary councillor budget for the swag that we bought, did we not? We all threw our money in for that? So, okay, yeah, okay. Just want to make sure we did that. Yeah.
And again, I want to comment, like when there is any kind of event, we have been purchasing our own candy, things like that, right? Buying our own sweaters with the logo, things like that, that we have not spent.
Yeah, we bought our own.
Relied on this budget.
Yeah.
So my next question, it is about trainings, conferences, membership. So I understand the professional development, it's important. Sometimes we have to compare the benefit versus the cost. So how do we feel on this one? And this is also not only for this specific corporate services, but also for conferences for council. So what is the benefit? So are we still feel that we have the great benefit to cover this expense? Should we consider going maybe every other year instead of every year? So I just want to put out.
So for myself, I think the most important thing for us to be at is UBCM. That's where you get to meet the ministers, you get to bring your community to the fray. I, for a number of years, bypassed Silga, because for me, Silga is the farm team for UBCM. Everything that happens at Silga goes to UBCM. So for a lot of years, I bypassed it. But then I also realized if we don't take our stuff to Silga, we don't get our resolutions pushed to UBCM. So it's kind of one hand on the other. FCM is, I attended one FCM and I enjoyed it. But I'm only going to do one more because of this mayor thing, trying to get our funding. But I probably will never attend another FCM after that. It's just, I think FCM should be attended by a councillor in their term at one point in time. But I don't think it's something that should happen yearly because the cost, especially if it's back in the east. We do have several other things such as, councillors want to go to an event and modular housing and all this other kind of stuff. I guess you got to weigh out what that looks like and how, it's professional development, like you say, but it's also making contacts. So I think part of us being representing the city is to represent the city and be at these things to talk to people, but within reason. I agree with you, within reason. That's just me. Anybody else want to? I see Councillor Regan, what do you need?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because it's not so much about, you're not going there for fun. It's a social event, but it's also making those contacts that especially the ones that where there's projects that we're working on, similar projects here in town, like the food hubs, like probably a co-op, like transportation, labor, like a lot of our smaller communities are all dealing with these transit issues. So it's to make the contacts and get more ideas and bring those ideas home.
I think one of the things you do notice at one point in time, there was a partner program for all of these things, UBCM, Silga, that's all disappeared. And the reason it is because when we're at UBCM, especially in Vancouver, we start at 7:30 and go till 4 or 5. All right. And then attend things after that, almost till 8 o'clock at night. So those days are so full that you barely get a chance to see your partner. And I think that's why the partner programs have disappeared. Councillor Hitcher.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add on some of the other comments. Maybe some of the events we can attend online, but Silga and UBCM, definitely there's a lot of different programs that they try and find relevant topics, whether it's, climate change action plans or granting options. FCM does focus on the global pieces with the Green Municipal Fund, GMF, which I know the mayor has mentioned. So I think that when you go to FCM, you probably get some really good information there. So, I mean, I think we're pretty good about watching our expenses and maybe attending less, but Silga is trying to make decisions that benefit the whole region. So I think if we don't participate on those things on a regular basis as kind of a mid-sized community for Silga, because a lot of the communities are quite small, Lytton and Logan Lake, Princeton. I think we have a pretty good voice in getting support for what we want to move to UBCM. So I think it's important that most of us try and attend Silga. So even maybe if you're on the fence about it, I think that if you can attend Silga, it's important because just so you can really push for and gain support so it can actually make it to UBCM.
Councilor Patricia, your light was on, it went off. We're good? Councilor, let's see, if pushing that back, Councilor Logan.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying that we can have proper representation in these events, but we don't have all to go.
That's
Let's say for UBCM, okay, that's interesting. I think that it's important for us to attend, all of us. Silga, perhaps maybe just cancel or 2 members. That's all. At least we have representation like we have been doing lately, and encouraged by Councillor Egan. When we go to an event, we present a report to council. So this is the highlights of this event, and it's always we are learning from those reports as well. So I'm just saying, like, if there is a way to reduce this cost, I would be open for it.
Yep, I agree with you. Not everybody has to attend everything. Councilor Chern.
We don't all attend, like Councillor Petrosi doesn't go to UBCM. We've only been to FCM 2 times this our elected term. I also think that we try to save money by, I personally won't sign up for a dinner that costs money. I refuse to spend money on something I can't eat. And also we try to commute with each other as much as possible. So we are trying, when we go to these conferences, we do try to minimize our cost. And I think it's very beneficial for people to attend because what you get out of something may not be what I get out of something. So when you have, you know, everyone attending, everyone brings forth something that they have learned from it. So FCM, I agree, is the one that probably could be looked at. And as I say, we've only done it twice. And so and we only sent 2 last time and it'll be 3 this time. So yeah, I think if we kind of keep on the path we're on and be cognizant of, you know, commuting with each other and you know, not overspending on meals, etc. That's fine.
I think FCM attendance when it's in the Western Hemisphere is probably better than when it's out back east, because that's quite a charge. Councilor Rogan.
Yeah, I just want to go back to corporate services here. So I raised this concern because of the amount of money here. So right now, corporate officer training, conference education, so it's $10,000. IT conference training education, 3,500. So is there, you know, what can you expand on this type of training so that we can determine how critical can be the attendance of these employees?
Before we get into that, I just want to remind council, going back to council conferences, that a $15,000 reduction was already made. So that was a 25% reduction in 2023 from 60 down to 45. So that did factor in those FCM savings that you've realized. In terms of corporate services, we also have to remember that there is going to be some turnover in that department, and there's going to be new people in some seats that are going to need some of that upskilling potential as well. So keep in mind that perspective as you're thinking about the level that's needed for that department.
If I may add to that as well, you're going to find the same theme as you go through most of the budget areas. There's going to be training and conferences in all of them. I think the one thing that's very most important on this, you know, obviously there's going to have to be provisions for turnover and upscaling your skill sets as we go. There's a number of staff that have accreditations that need to be maintained through professional development. But we also want to link a lot of this to even things like economic development. When we're doing this and we're making connections out there, we're learning what other places are doing, we're bringing ideas back. It's very important throughout the entire organization to get those benefits from it. And very much because we're going to see it throughout, the practice I've always supported in the past, if we have a bit more formality from each of these things that people attend, regardless of the level of the conference, that we bring a full report back that we can share and document of what we learned and what was presented. Then we can get a little bit more detail built into what we're going to and the value we're getting, and we'll be able to tune it at some point, possibly to our advantages. It's a little open right now because it's always been fairly open of what do you need, what do you want to attend? But to get the best value out of these things, we make sure that the learning comes back with it and is presentable to the point where we all get the benefit of that learning. So something to think about, but we're going to be talking about this in each area of the budget because it's going to appear over and over again.
Excuse me.
Yep, Scott.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that one of the best conferences that we went to was the very first one, and it was the LGLA. They put on that new counselor session. And so I think,
yeah.
you know, if you're running again and you get elected, you should make sure you go to that because it really gives you an insight into what you're getting into.
And I just want to put out there, all the costs that myself or if somebody filled in for me for TNRD are covered by TNRD. There's no cost to the city on that. So, Councillor Charney.
I'd like to go to the RCMP report operating costs. The victim services cost us $35,000 every year. I think this is an area that we have to look at. This is the government program. It is not a mandate of a municipal district. And I have voiced my opinion about this before. And I think that's one thing that we have to look at is keeping within the municipality's mandate. And that's $35,000, right, for victim services.
So you are aware that we are taking that matter to UBCM to talk to the ministry about a full-time coordinator paid by the province. Yeah, so that's what we're looking for. Victim services for me is woefully underfunded and not taken care of. They're asked to do so much with so little. I know, and it's unacceptable to ask these people who are basically volunteers to do this with almost nothing in their budget. We have no ability for a safe house in this community or any of that kind of stuff. So that's got to change.
And I totally agree. But when I'm looking at infrastructure and parks and recreation, that is our mandate. That is what our taxpayers pay for. This is victim services is a provincially funded program, and that's where the funding should come from. They have to advocate. And if we as a
And that's why we're
community,
taking it to UBCM.
that's right. And if we as a community can support them as much as we can, but not financially. I think we have to draw the line at looking at how we use our taxpayers' dollars, and taxpayers want to see it on their sidewalks, on their parks, etc.
And that's why we're taking that to UBCM because we
So
feel,
how can we get rid of it on our budget?
well, at this point in time, I don't think we should be talking about victim services being getting rid of all at this point. in
No,
time.
but I mean, the funding of it, it's right down in there for the 35,000 that we are spending on it.
Every community is in the same boat. And the situation is that what we have to do is make the province realize that this is their bailiwick, not ours.
But is every community supporting victim services?
There's either they are, or there is no victim services.
Well, how can they run a program at only $35,000?
They
They
can't.
are getting money from the provincial government. The provincial government just isn't funding it. That's the problem.
If you want to make a motion to remove victim services from the budget, please go ahead.
I will. I know it's going to happen, but I will make a motion to remove $35,000 from the budget for RCMP operating.
Anybody? That's interesting. So. Well, sure.
Be appropriate to say that.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
What? Fine.
No problem. So we have before us a motion, moved and seconded to remove victim services from the community. All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated.
I don't think it's fair to say it's taxpayers' dollars when you can sit and be advocating for something like painting the ceiling of the senior center and call that more important than having victim services that supports the whole community when they're in crisis. I can appreciate your point of wanting to support and have this as a global or a provincial mandate and have them fund it. But because there's no funding and we had no program, the community depends on this in periods of crisis. I understand and I agree, and with the mayor's comment saying that we are taking this to UBCM and full support there. But if we didn't have this program, how many people would be left with no services in the traumatic time, a death, a fire, so many. It's a vital piece that we had since the 90s when it was implemented, I think 1993, when Britt Marie Pointing and Katrina, I think Walder started the program in the detachment. And it's invaluable with so many people, and during the flood, I just couldn't imagine Merritt without it.
Well, I think that if they looked at funding different models, getting grants and looking at other programs that we already have in town with our CLC, our Better at Home, our counseling, and envelop it into that.
But
And make it a program that's not to be, it doesn't fall, my point of view, it doesn't fall under the municipal mandate for funding. And that's what I'm
Well,
going on and
I agree, but until in the 90s, we had nothing, and then we had to fight to get that. And, you know, we've been spending the same 35,000, I think, for over 20 years. So, I mean, a community without that, I think, would be a pretty heartless community, but anyway.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying look for different funding.
Sure. Great.
So what I'm interested to see is when our motion that's going to UBCM, you know how we get those and you get it back and there's all these little blue things underneath? How many times that's been taken to UBCM? I'll guarantee you we'll be the only ones that have brought that forward. I'll guarantee you there's been nothing underneath it because nobody's ever moved it forward. So, you know, you're not incorrect. This is something that is not only, I think this is more of a federal issue. Maybe federal and provincial. It's the same as the homelessness. That's not a city purview either, but it falls upon us to take care of these things. But as long as we allow governments to download without saying anything, this will continue.
Soon you have to say no. You have to be nasty. You have to say no.
Sure. Councilor Hogan.
No, I just want to add that a couple of years ago, I believe that they had a presentation to us, and we agreed to explore other funding in the way of bringing this issue to UBCM, which we will be doing, as well as remember that there was a recommendation for them to approach TNRD to see if there was any funding opportunity for them. So we have to complete with that one before we can consider anything else.
Anything else on community services, corporate services, corporate services? No, we're going to move on. Moving on. CFO, over to you.
Okay, so for community services, the director is away, but we do have the operations manager available to support questions, and I will try and support as well.
Let me go through my sheet here. I think I wrote something down. Yeah, I do have something here. So it's in the second of one of these sheets here. We have the TNRD Recreation and TNRD Nickel Valley Aquatic Center. One's for 70, one's for 173. Could I just get clear on that, what that actually is?
So those are grants that are being provided for the aquatic center and for recreational programming.
Okay.
As part of our negotiation conversations, we agreed with TNRT to focus on transit first,
Okay.
which gave us that
Yes.
200% bump for transit funding. Recreation was going to be the next layer in the conversation for 2026.
Just moving down a couple to the children's programs. Is the children's program still very viable, or I know they're attended quite well, but I mean, is that program still a viable program? I'm assuming this is more for summer, or is this all through the year, or is this just for the summer program?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is for all through the year.
Okay.
Part of that summer program is in there.
Are they attended, well attended? Are they filled? I'm just curious, like, I'm wondering what our percentage of usage is. I do know to a certain degree, and I understand in the summer, this becomes a babysitting service. This is exactly what it becomes. Kids are out of school, mom and dad is working, they need to be somewhere. So, I understand that helps the community out as well. And I'm just wondering some of the other programs, are they still being taken up by the kids, or are we seeing a trail off, or we are about status quo, or?
I think we're getting a pretty good turnout for most of our programs. We have Tiny Tots, which is kind of just like a younger, smaller infants and toddlers can come. We set up a whole bunch of different little things that they can come play on. We get lots of good turnout for that. It's a $2 drop-in fee. Mini kickers, all that stuff. We do get pretty good turnouts for most of our kids.
Okay.
Kids programs.
Thank you. Over to the next page, it says Nickel Valley Aquatic Center vending machines. These machines are not ours. I'm assuming these are sublet to somebody who comes in, fills them up and takes X amount out. You might as well just leave your mic on. I'm assuming they come in, do we get any kind of revenue from those vending machines? Like, I'm assuming we rent the space out for them to sit there, or do we?
Yeah, I believe we do get some sort of revenue. The company that we use is Fraser Valley Vending.
Okay.
So they come up periodically. They know which machines need to be serviced more often. The one at the pool gets used quite a bit due to, large amount of youth that use the facility. From what I understand, we do get a small kickback from that.
Okay.
But we don't deal with machines. If it goes down, we just tell them to, there's a number on every machine to call if there's a money issue or a product that's not available and stuff. So.
And there's no cost for repairs on that to us?
Not to us, no.
Thank you. Councillor Petrosi.
Couple meetings ago, we talked about the summer program where we brought it up that I guess it ran at a loss last summer. And just wondering if you have any input into that, or
Which summer program are you referring to?
The summer one, the August one.
the August, it's attending at the Civic Center, I
Okay.
guess.
Thank you.
Right, so.
No, you have to register.
No, yeah. And it ran at a loss last summer, so I'm just wondering why and if we want to actually continue with that program.
So last year we did run at a loss. I believe our recovery rate was around in the mid 70% for that one. The reason we were at a loss is we have a deal with NVIT to provide funding for a few recreation court helpers for that. Their funding they had fell through, so we didn't receive that for some of the helpers that we had. So we ended up being at a loss as of last year for that one.
And what about this year?
$3,200, I believe.
Cost recovery was 77%. So we did have that feature in the December presentation. We have submitted some Canada Summer Jobs applications for that if we decide to maintain that offering. So there is some hope regarding that cost recovery percentage. So those applications have gone in, hoping that that will help fill any gaps from the MBIT side.
Okay, Councillor Charlie.
Under the positions in org chart, you have economic development manager. I don't think that we have approved an economic development manager, but we were presented at one time that you were going to be getting $188,000 from grants. And staff was proposing on using 46,000 for a 0.5 full-time equivalent. So is this economic development manager coming out of grant funding?
So we did decide to defer that position for 2025 and we're premising a deferral in 2026. We've maintained that in the out years of the financial plan, such that council has the option of funding it or funding a consortium that provides that same service.
Okay, so we don't have an economic development manager.
It's not filled today, but the dollars are accounted for in the financial plan for 2027 through 2030, so that we maintain the option of council filling that role or finding another solution for investing in economic development.
Okay, so it's not affecting our 2026 budget.
Correct. So it's not filled.
Okay,
It is premised in the 2027 through 2030 plan.
okay.
or at least the optionality to fill it.
Okay. Contracted services, 270,000, we're just about 271,000. Is there any way we could cut down on some of the contracted services?
Sorry, Counselor, could you tell me which GL you were looking at?
I'm just looking at a previous document that was given us that 68% of the budget was for contracted services. Yeah. So I'm just wondering how we could, that seems like, for a budget of 398,271 is on contracted services. I'm just wondering how we could, how can we become more efficient and start using the people that we have so that we aren't always going out for contracted services?
Can we find out what those contracted services are?
So I was just gonna say, let's try and unpack this facility by facility. It's a little probably daunting to try and cover all of community services as one $260,000
This is,
conversation.
okay, this is under operating.
It is, but I'm just saying in the
Economic development.
lines,
Okay, I'm sorry.
we
I'll
can go
clarify
line by
that.
line.
Okay, this is under economic development operating. It's not under protective service.
So that's-
under economic development operating.
That's our grant funding for the projects.
Okay,
So for 2020, we've been working on the same $500,000 grant fund since the flood. So that got rescoped about a year ago, and we've been executing on it in 2025. And then there's a scope of work that carries over into 2026.
yeah. Yeah, I see that 210 comes from taxes and others, and 188 comes from grants.
Correct.
But what I'm trying to get at is I would really like to see the city move more to our in-house doing some of these services with more education and training. And so that we're not spending a lot of money on contracted services. So that's what I just wondered what under the economic development operating, what some of these contracted services are. No, that's under other. Bailey House is 15% at 50, just about 60,000. Arts and Council is just about 4,000. 14% is advertising, promotion expenses, subscriptions, publications. And that's just about 56,000.
So the scope of the modified grant agreement included our placemaking project. So that's website updates, potentially signage updates. It was the city center revitalization concept designs, the mascot, all of that was around placemaking. It also includes some scope to remain or for 2026. So there's a project around the MRDT tax and whether that's applicable for the city of Merritt that could potentially bring in revenue for funding tourism. So there's 50,000 allocated to that. There's a workforce engagement element to that rescope grant agreement. There's the ACDEF marketing strategy. So all of that scope was primarily grant funded. The residual that's in there is trying to execute on some of the things that have come out of those grant funded projects. So as we spent that $500,000, what do we have to work with in terms of executing on economic development strategy?
Well, you're searching, Councillor Egan.
It also says in that information that we received that the staff is proposing hiring a half-time, full-time employee, part-time, full-time for 46,000. Would that come out of grant or would it be coming out of the economic development's
We need
wages?
to be able to see where you're looking.
Well, it's under community services economic development. And it was in the original information you gave us in December. I can find it here. if you go to, well, there's no page of numbers on this either, but anyways, it's under Community Services Economic Development that I have marked as as an E. But it does say in 2020 paragraph, I'll read the whole paragraph. In 2026, ECDEV will focus on finishing the remaining scope of the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program grant. Staff are currently building a project plan. The city has the financial capital in terms of the grant funds, however, additional human capital is needed. The province has supported using up 100,000 of the grant funds towards staffing part-time of 0.5 FTE, 1-year term proposed for 2026 to help deliver the workforce engagement strategy and placemaking scopes of the project, using 46,000 of the 100,000 that can be allocated towards staffing. Council input will be sought through various channels, including council reports and lunch and learns in early 2026 to inform additional action items and budget allocations to complete the grant by December 31st by 2026.
So in more recent conversations with staff, we've looked at what's remaining for 2026, and I believe we allocated 20,000 for staffing within the workforce engagement project. So this began being developed October, November, December, as we've gone through and been able to determine what the remaining scopes are. The allocation towards staffing, I believe, for workforce engagement was 20,000. And we have some current staff that are helping fill that capacity internally.
Thank you.
Councillor Charlton.
I don't have, the protective issues with EMCR and ESS is fairly straightforward. The general government operating straightforward. Just a question on the city hall capital, 35,000 on replacement of front doors. Are they accessible? Do we have a push button on them? I didn't look.
On one of them,
Okay,
the reliability of that, not great.
not great.
So there's reliability and maintenance issues with both sets of doors from a safety and accessibility perspective. So if this project does get approved, there are some potential grant funding streams that we will consider. We've had to stand down looking at that because there's a moratorium right now on anything that wasn't in a previous bylaw. So we can't submit applications on anything right now that wasn't already approved. So I have
Right.
directed our grant writer to stand down. But there are potential opportunities where maybe only a portion will come out of facility reserves for that project.
Okay. Yeah.
So the other
that
thing-
would be
The
excellent.
other thing about the doors, when they're closed at noon to 1:15, we've had several occasions where somebody comes to open the door and they reef on it and they continue to reef on it and they break it. And that happens constantly. So I'm not really sure whether we should put some sort of electronic device on there that makes their hair go up, but we've had countless repairs on the door because somebody just can't figure out that the door's locked at this point in time and can't read a sign. And that becomes a cost to every single person in this community. And then the doors don't lock correctly and then they don't unlock correctly. And yeah, the doors are getting beaten to death because people just are unhappy and they start ramming on the doors, kind of like a kid at a pinball machine when he loses his quarter. So I kind of wish people would knock that off. So
You need a flashing neon sign.
No, that's-
Closed,
We
closed.
were looking at options for sliding doors, which is better from an accessibility perspective,
Right.
but it also would prevent someone having access to that handle to try and yank. It would just be closed and there would just be a deadbolt on it. Very difficult to get any leverage on that. So that's,
and the damage seems to come in the colder weather, like the -10, -15, -20, those aluminum pieces just don't hold up. They
Yeah,
don't.
okay. Yeah.
so it's premised as facility reserve funded right now. So we do have some insurance proceeds that help beef up that reserve that we can draw on. If it gets approved, we'll certainly consider any grant funding streams that help on the accessibility element of that.
So I have a question on one of the sheets here, and it's fairly simplistic. We have a thing called movie night program and a thing called music in the park, and there's asterisks right next to
Yeah.
both of them. Is that something that is on hold or just something we only move when we feel that it'll work? Or I'd like to tell you the page number. It's one of these sheets. I think it's on the second to last one. It should be right at the very top. It should say child programs, mini kickers, gymnastics, cheer, and then it should be on that one. Sorry, I wish I had a number on these, but I don't. What's that?
It's not go, nature go.
Maybe, I'm not looking at it. Sorry, maybe I could answer my own question here.
So a couple years ago, materials and supplies and things for recreational programming was
Yep.
one large bucket. We went through and tried to allocate that down to discrete programming events like Music in the Park or Canada Day, just so that we have a better handle on what we're budgeting for each event. Instead of like a pot of money of 40 or 50,000, we tried to break that out. So there might be some legacy footnotes of us
Okay.
managing that breakout into individual programming.
Now, I do believe we did Music in the Park last year, did we not? I thought we did. I thought we had something in the park on
we
Thursday
did.
nights.
We did have music in the
Yeah.
park last year.
Did we have the movie night program? I'm assuming that was like for July 1st. Remember, there would be a movie night in the park and then the fireworks would go off. Or is this the thing that happens at the pool?
This is something that we used to run at the Civic Center.
Okay,
We've cut back on that recently. The licensing to play a movie is quite high.
Okay.
It's roughly 350 to
it's $1. It's $1.
it's roughly $350 to $400 to play the movie.
Okay,
So we've kind of cut back on that, and I believe from what I was told, the turnout wasn't great after COVID and whatnot. We still do it twice a year at the pool. There's a separate budget for that for the pool under their programs, and we do get a good turnout for the pool one, so we do continue running that twice a year.
so we do have the availability to do it if we feel that we need to, but we don't necessarily push forward with it. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. Any, Councilor Ogle?
Yeah, but just on that question or on that comment, so is there an opportunity to partner with other organizations? I believe that in the past, I'm not sure if the city, but I remember that Beam Credit Union had even the screen and they were able to go from city to city. Is there an
Oh, right,
opportunity
they
for
do.
them to
Yeah.
bring them instead, and we can have a sponsor for this type of activities that if we don't have the result that we want, there is no cost to us.
Right, that's definitely something we can look into for sure. We have not explored that avenue, but we definitely can.
Councilor Shrink?
I'll go to community services, recreation, cultural operating. There is the people aspect of it, $1.97 million. And then there's 303,000 for administration. Could I have a understanding of what that 303,000 for administration is?
Just, please.
Certainly. So the Director of Community Services sits within that bucket, as well as the Community Services Manager role.
They don't fall under the people aspect of it?
So you're looking here in administration for 300?
Oh, let me see. See the cultural.
So these are slices and
Yes,
dices on the
yes,
same
yes, yes,
dollars.
yes, yes.
So I've sliced and diced from this perspective at a service level, so we can see where the money gets spent at the facility level. The pie graph is by line item, but it's the same dollars. So
Okay.
the salaries that are accounted for in the pie graph are allocated across the facilities.
Okay.
Some of the admin, like the director and the manager, would sit in administration.
What do we spend? Is it for hydro and water, that we spend 108,000 at Claybanks?
So Claybanks is going to be 12780
Okay,
in your line items. So
No, he paid.
it'll
he
be
gets money.
closer
He
to
gets-
the
we don't pay.
end.
We paid them. We paid them.
But I thought he took the money.
Claybanks
He-
is 12780.
So Counselor Charney, if you turn to your line items that start with 1-2-780, we can go through all of
1-2.
Claybank's costs. Third last page from the end on community services.
Yes, right there. Recreation Claybank, contracted services, park contractor.
Seven. I'm.
So 1-2-780.
Yeah. 1453.
Dash two. 2776. Must be in here, 780. Okay.
Claybanks will start at the first 1-2-780.
Okay, I've got that down there. But, okay, so I need clarification then on the contractor because I have been under the assumption that the contractor collects the money and keeps a percentage of that money.
No, that's why we wanted to come back to the city. That money is just in his pocket and we handle everything over $200, which is just about everything. This has been going on for quite some time. That money needs to come, this money needs to come back into the city coffers.
Yes, I know, but I thought that this last 2-year contract, we were running it the same way it was before.
And correct, and he gets his payout of $108,000 or whatever it is, and off he goes.
And we get the revenue from the
We get
RV park.
so we get what's left over after he gets paid out, but we also have to cover the cost of everything over $200.
Correct. So what is the revenue versus how much we pay 108,000?
So on one of your first community service pages, 1-1-780 will show that we're budgeting 135,000 in revenue. And then on the cost side, you'll see that the park contractor line is 75,000. There's also some additional costs for running play banks. The net of all of that is what is available for the city.
Okay. So it looks like the park contractor is the $75,000.
Correct. And the
Okay.
city's gross revenues are 135,000. So you net those, and then there's some additional costs that are incurred in the operation.
Okay,
And you recall we have one more year with the contractor.
great. And then the contracted services for 264,000.
So we're back to community services as a
Use
whole.
community services operating.
So that's where we need to go through facility by facility so that we can chunk out the conversation. It's a little easier for Ryan to manage the aquatic center and the civic center, et cetera, separately, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, those, I really think we have to look at contracted services.
Yep. So the first big chunk is going to be in 1-2-740. So Ryan, if we want to start at the pool.
Yeah, so that's for the pool aquatic center. Anytime we have any issues with our HVAC units, major plumbing leaks, anything like that, we call a contractor and we try our best to mitigate as many of the issues as we possibly can with our skill set that we have. But there's certain things that we just can't do. We don't have a crimping tool. We don't have the ability to work with copper and solder that stuff. And unfortunately, with the commercial building code is you have to have copper piping everywhere. So when we get pinholes leaks, because our water is very hard, so we get leaks at all of our buildings all the time. We need to bring a contractor in to fix those leaks all the time. You could hire a full-time plumber on staff to try and mitigate some of that if you'd like, but the plumbing is a big cost. HVAC, for heating units, cooling units, they go down regularly. A lot of them are older. They take a lot of upkeep. Parts are getting obsolete. We do our maintenance on them. We used to contract that out. We brought that in-house now for the majority of our buildings. So we will go up there every few months, grease them, check the belts, do the filters, things like that. So we have saved, a couple $1,000s a year by doing that. And then, electrical stuff too. When there's major electrical things that need to happen, we do have one of our maintenance gentlemen who is a retired electrician. He will perform small jobs for sure for us to help save money, but anything bigger, he just doesn't have the capability for it to do anymore. He's quite older and whatnot, so he's not going to be crawling in the ceiling and things like that, running wire. So we do have to contract out for electrical services.
So the next big chunk is going to be at the civic center, which is 1-2-750. And then just keep in mind that there's a revenue component associated with some of these costs because it includes things like linen cleaning, etc.
So for the contracted services for the civic center, same thing, plumbers, electricians, we hire out, tablecloth rentals. We own the rounds that we have and we launder those ourselves. It's quite time consuming, but we do function with that. But the rectangles, we rent those. Those are laundered every week. I have just recently cut back on the amount we have to try and save money because it was too high. So we should see a savings there. And then also part of that contracted services, janitorial services. Janitors come in every day, such as City Hall as well, and they clean the facility.
So just a quick question. So we're also looking after the airport terminal building. We're looking after the building where we have the church and the cadets. We're also looking after, the museum. So these are costs that have to have certified personnel work on them at some point in time.
Yeah, depending on the issue, correct, yes. If it's smaller stuff, like, the museum will go and change your light bulbs for them. That group or the senior center, they'll buy the light bulbs, but being seniors, they can't perform the work, so my staff will go and help them out with small jobs like that, fixing the plumbing if they have issues with their toilets and stuff.
So when we had the light collapse at the pool,
Yes.
which is 30 years old now, it's actually 3 years past its lifespan. How many days did we lose? And I'm sure we had to have everything certified along that wall and everything blocked off because we've got people and water wandering all over the place. So I'm assuming we lost some operational budget there on that day.
Yeah,
Or those days.
we lost 6 days.
Hmm.
I made the executive decision because of the valence falling to remove the rest of the valences.
Mhm.
And the vast majority of them were also just barely held up there. Yeah, and then because they fell, we had to drain the pools, remove the glass from the shattered light bulbs and stuff. So we lost 6 days there. My crew did help out a fair bit. I did bring in one contractor to remove the valences and an electrician to unhook all the lights and stuff and plug them and update some of our emergency lighting. Yeah,
Have we a plan to move forward with some sort of lighting there? Like, I mean, it doesn't bother me. It's a little darker than it normally is.
yes, I just had a lighting engineer come in this past week. He is putting up a proposal for us on various things we can do to increase the lighting in certain areas. So I'm just waiting for that.
And I just want to pass on, I do go to TNRD and we do get a lot of people that come for hockey tournaments with their kids and they go to the pool. And they're very complimentary on how new our pool is. And I let them know it's close to 30 years old and they can't believe it. It's one of the nicer pools out there. So an amazing job for everybody to keep the lifespan of that going. So I do appreciate it. I have one other question, if you don't mind. I'm going to go 1-2-780-1551. Which is recreation, clay banks, other advertising in magazines and camping and forums. When we sign with TNV, will we lose some of that cost? Will that be their costs or will that still stay with us? Or would we move that to TNV to do that kind of advertising as our tourism contractor?
So in the budget right now, we don't have an approved amount in an agreement with TNB. The proposal's in there for 50,000, but it's not been papered by council yet. So we're premising those dollars under clay banks.
Okay.
If a decision gets made to fund TNB and execute on an agreement, that can be part of the discussion, but we don't have anything concrete right now.
Brian, just a quick question. When we at Claybanks, we are responsible for everything over $200, correct?
250.
250. How often does that happen? I'm assuming a lot. Because almost everything is $200, right?
Well, because the park just recently opened last year, everything is fairly new and has been replaced. So there wasn't many issues last year.
Okay, good to know. Councilor Charney, you're still on.
I'd like to go back to your contracted services. You're talking about electricians and plumbing. Well, when I just look at this one area of recreation culture operating, if the majority of our money is spent on electricians and plumbing, and I assume that carries over to other departments within the city, is it more feasible for the city to hire a full-time electrician and a full-time plumber and then reduce the cost on contracting services? What I'm trying to say is it more beneficial for us to have a full-time plumber and electrician, and then we would be spending less money on contracting services, so we balance out or end up better.
Well,
Do you want to answer that, Rick?
that's a super hypothetical question because I mean.
Well,
you've got-
not
you've
when
got-
we're spending so much money.
But you've got wages, so you're gonna have to compensate them for what, I mean, if you think you're gonna get a full-time plumber and everything for less than $150,000 a year, so that's another 300,000, 2 employees, 2 offices, 2 everything else.
Well, right in this one area here, contracted services, 264,000. You know, there's just about 2 employees there in one area for culture, recreation and cultural services operating.
Yeah,
Thank you, your worship. This is one of those things that we're gonna have to keep an eye on as the city grows and as our infrastructure and needs grow as well. Age of a lot of the equipment's gonna play into this, but when you look at, you know, the electricity side of things, yes, we have a lot of opportunity with streetlights, with traffic signals, with working on facilities where an electrician could be doing things 100%. Are they gonna be able to do it all the time? Holiday, sick days? There's always gonna be a need until we develop more of a width of people to cover that. We just have to be very cautionary on when's the right time to start pulling the trigger on staff on these things. Because right now, you know, your average, you know, outside contractor is gonna be, you know, 2 to 3 times as a charge out rate what we're gonna necessarily pay somebody for, but they have to cover their own overhead and expenses and other things as well out of all that. So an hourly rate for a plumber or an electrician versus staff rate may look like they're a long way apart, but in reality, they're not until we start getting enough knowledge of work that we can keep them busy on full time so that they're not unused full time. So there's gonna be a utilization thing in there somewhere. There is a lot of opportunity starting to loom. I mean, we have to pull for signal lights and, well, sorry, the traffic lights in particular. That's a company that comes out of Kamloops on contract for that, right? Are we outfitted to work on that specifically ourselves, just with an electrician? But we have to consider, you know, the access to the lights where they are, traffic management, all these things go into that, maybe a bucket truck, which we do have, right? So we're in the ballpark of the conversation's good to have. I'm not sure we're there yet when we're talking the numbers that we are, but there are repeated numbers through different departments where electrical and plumbing is used 100%. A lot of it could be project based, a lot of it could be maintenance based. But we just have to make sure that when we do have that conversation, we're doing it at the right level. Because we start taking on employees, you know, it needs to be a full-time workload for it. Where I'm not sure we're 100% there yet overall. If that helps. But definitely a good question and definitely something we need to keep a handle on with everything combined. And something I've been watching, at least on the electrical side, because you always ask the questions of who's going out to do different things and where are we pulling contractors in on the infrastructure and public works side of things, in addition to what these guys are doing, whatnot as well. There are opportunities, 100%.
that's really good.
Yeah, I was looking at the line 15779, former CPO building. And we transferred $100,000 from reserves and that's supposed to be, do we ever get another report on the condition? Because it says that it's set for demo or either or remediation or demo.
CL,
Okay, thank you, your worship. What we've established right now is the idea of that, what was that, $100,000,
Yeah.
correct? Is as a starting point, we need to start getting into that building and developing plans. So there's gonna be hazardous materials investigation, there's gonna be some engineering investigation to decide what can be fixed and level the costing. So this is working our way down that pathway. $100,000 doesn't buy you everything, doesn't demolish the building, it doesn't get it restored. So what we're asking for is a contribution to start getting it emptied out, getting the investigation done, and start providing you better information so you can make a decision at some point on restore or demolish, and what does it look like. There's always a restore option. It comes at a cost. There's always a construction option at a cost. So I want to get you good information by tearing into this thing piece by piece and providing you a report back. So no, we haven't done it yet because that's not funded at this point. we stopped where we were and we started trying to clean the building out a little bit to make it more accessible. When we have budget allocated to do more, we're gonna get in there and do more and keep you updated on the roll as we go.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh,
Sorry.
Nope. Take it
That
away.
might be a nice segue into discussing the capital project list for community services and getting some final decisions in that space, if we could. So on page 2 of the summary sheet, we've got a list of the capital projects that have not been in a previous bylaw, or there's been some sort of scope or inflationary type change associated with them. So at the bottom of that summary page for page 2, is there any projects that we do not want to proceed with funding?
Well, I would have to say at this point for myself, just looking at it, the electric ice resurfacer probably could be boosted to another year because we still have some time on the one we have. It's a fairly large expense. So question on the Rotary Park bandshell gate enclosure. Now, we've visited this now twice since I've been on council, and we put the gates in and they continually get torn out. One of the reasons we decided not to put them back in is because it was a revolving cost of the gates completely being torn off of there by people who were just being silly or homeless. And you'd hate to say it that way, but that's what was happening. And we kind of decided that we wouldn't move forward on that until we had basically a gate situation that was almost indestructible, which I have no idea if that's ever come about. But I would hate to put a set of gates in there just to have them down or torn apart within a couple of months, and then we can't use them anymore. So, right, that one I would not too sure.
What you'll find is that anything that we assigned in 2023 as grant contingent, I've re-added to everyone's list just to
Okay.
make sure that that's still the opinion of council. So throughout all of the summary sheets, if it was assigned grant contingency a couple years ago, I've put it on here just to reaffirm that decision.
That's the same that you're signing, and the road park bench.
Correct, the siding and the roof.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just a quick question on the siding, Civic Center siding roof, siding and roof. At some point, insurance is going to tell us that we have to fix that or else we're not going to be covered if we let that roof go too long. The reason I know this is because of my house went through that. They showed up and said, your roof is 25 years old. We're not covering you anymore until you get a new roof. What is how much time do we have left on that roof? Do you know? If we had to stretch it?
I am going to be getting a study done on that roof this year.
Okay.
I've reached out to a company that's done a preliminary look at it. They're waiting to see if we can do a further look on it to see. Some parts are okay, some parts do need a lot of work. Mainly the shingles are starting to rot heavily.
I get this. So for myself, I mean, if we're going to move on the roof, we move on the whole roof because there's no sense patching it only to come another 2 years to do it again. I'd seen clear case of that is this curling rink roof. We spent close to 80 somewhat $1,000 on it before it was finally done correctly on past 2 councils, but we piecemealed it together so they could get a year in. And that was money as far as I was concerned that just frittered away because the roof needed a complete redo, which it's got now. So for me, because if we start getting drywall damage and we start getting insulation damaged inside, now we got to start tearing walls down, etc. And then we start getting work. But anyways, that's just me. But let me push a button here. Councillor Egan.
Yeah, so I would agree with most of these. I think we need to make a move on the CPO refitting or demolish it because we've been talking about that for at least 6 months and at least. And the other thing that I don't see on here is the lights for Central Park. And I recall that, did you not say just the other day, Mayor, that it was a done deal?
No, we approved that lights could be put in, but now we've got to find out who's going to pay for them.
Okay.
So the softball association said they had some funding that could go towards it. The CAO has had a meeting with the softball association. I'm not sure if that subject came up or not. Some other stuff did. So the idea is education. Yes, council has approved the lights, But now, how do the lights get in? Who maintains it? The bulbs are like $900 a piece if they go wrong. So there's a cost. Everything that we put in that field, there's a cost to maintaining. And if these, and the softball association has said, you know, hey, we're willing to, so that's where we are at this point in time.
Okay, that's good.
Counselor, sorry.
Sorry, just the way you said it the other day, I just thought, oh,
No, it's
Okay.
not a done deal. We're at the point where we all agree we'd like to have lights.
okay.
Now we got to see how we get them there.
So Counselor Egan, if I may, Parks is kind of shared between the Director of Infrastructure and the Director of Community Services. So all of Parks is consolidated under infrastructure. So the 400,000 for lighting is actually on the old Public Works page for infrastructure. So on page 2 of that section, Central Park lighting is actually your first line in the capital list. It's just not under community services. All of Parks has been consolidated under
Oh,
infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
That's Richard.
For the Civic Center roof and the bandshell enclosure, it says grant contingent. So are these being reapplied for every year in grants or are they?
So if an opportunity does arise that would be an eligible funding stream for it, then we would pursue it. There hasn't been a lot. We did take our swing at the 7 million strategic priorities fund for recreation within the city. That did have to be narrowed down to one parcel. So we focused on the pool and the arena because that's the biggest, one project or one scope that we could swing for within that 7 million. So that does end up excluding the Civic Center. I will make one comment regarding the grant contingency on the roof and the siding. So as the CAO has done a really good job finding creative ways on projects that were funded out of the gas tax. So things like the pipe bridge replacement that might come in hundreds of thousands of dollars under budget. That does free up gas tax reserves that you could consider for making some of these upgrades out of reserve. So that savings that gets unlocked on the public works side or the old public works side, infrastructure side could be reapportioned to community services if you so choose.
Correct me if I'm wrong, CFO, but we have two types of grants out there, one called a hard grant, one called a soft grant. And the hard grant is labeled for something that has to happen. A soft grant is here's the money, do whatever you want with it. Is that correct?
You could characterize it as hard and soft. So we have two recurring funding streams. So the gas tax is for infrastructure. So that would be more of the hard grant. Then there's the small community grant, which is about 400,000 change, closer to $500,000. And that's more on the operating side, the soft side.
Councillor Egan.
Yes, one other thing too, when you're talking about $70,000 for Spirit Square Phase 1 and 2, I would like to know what that money has been designated for exactly. Is that for fencing?
I would imagine that would be part of it because we have to have a control situation with Spirit Square as we move forward.
This is the right one, the first round.
And I think also, well, I think we also talked about shading, so it can actually be used in the summer.
Yeah.
I think we talked about cameras and lights. So
Okay, yeah.
I think I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but that's what we've talked about.
So I have a little write up here. So for Spirit Square Phase 1 and 2, the Spirit Square project adopts a phased design approach led by Modus to enhance the public space while maintaining flexibility for future improvements. The concept includes the installation of decorative fencing with gates, shade sails, and misting system to improve comfort and accessibility, along with a drinking water station to support user needs. The phased implementation will allow for initial enhancements that improve safety, aesthetics, and usability, with potential future expansions based on community feedback and funding.
Okay, so then we're not talking about any kind of seating? People have to bring their own chairs?
At
Well,
this time,
Yeah, because I'm thinking if you put more seating in there, we're just gonna have the same problem.
Yeah, no,
Now they'll be shaded.
I think when we met with that company, they suggest up against the building that TNV was going to use to remove all of that and put like a shade trees in there. And people would have to BYOC, bring your own chair. And sit underneath the shading. They suggest to us removing most of the spots where people can plant themselves. Which I think, I don't know, is a good idea.
BYOC.
Or bring your own chair.
Bring your own charting.
Yeah, no, stop your turning.
I could go a long ways on that one.
So you could, or even a collapsible seating or, wow, I guess I wouldn't.
I don't know. Again,
I get ruined.
for myself, it's like when you attend these events, like when you go to music in the park and stuff, you bring your own chair or you bring a blanket, right?
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
But if you were walking, around and like as a senior citizen would be probably, or wheeling around. And they want to stop and have a little rest. They, unless they had a wheelchair that had a seat on it, they wouldn't have their chair. Yeah. Right, so.
Well, I do
Just stand
believe,
under the
I
shades.
do believe at point in time in CPO, I kind of remember with some of the Christmas tree lighting, there were chairs that were brought out for people for the event, and then they went back into the CPO building. So I think there would be a bit of availability to have some chairs available for those who really want them. We do the same thing.
If we
airport-
staff that, if we staff that center again.
Well, if we do, or if we replace it, whatever, but I mean, there's a way to get, temporary seating could be available. I mean, we do it at Airport Appreciation Day for the seniors.
I know,
as
but
well.
it's ad hoc. You're opening up Spirit Square for the day so that people can enjoy it. There should be some kind of seating, I think.
Well, there will be some sort of seating, but they suggest the one against the building where nothing can be seen. Remove the ones that are out and open probably would be left. The concrete ones where we sit, but the one against the building, you can't see the stage, so what's the point of it?
Yeah.
So they suggest we move that, put the trees in, leave the other seating as it is. So people can enjoy it, but at some point in time, even with decorative fencing, the whole idea would be to open it every single day
Yes.
and let people do whatever they want, but if it starts to become a problem, at least the gates can be shut again. I mean, there's also damage to the building that has to be taken care of. The fountain no longer works. All the lights have been smashed in the ground with the skateboards. Like, I mean, there's some damage that's happened in there. That's why we closed it off. We were, the building is damaged. There's that big piece of plywood over the deal. I mean, it's damaged. They've carved into the cedar siding. It's a mess. So yeah, some people say, well, it looks derelict. Well, yeah, it does because it is derelict. We got to fix it. And that costs tax dollars. And all you gotta do something about the homeless problem. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. So,
Thank you.
Councilor Charney.
I really like the idea of Spirit Square being fixed up but I would very cautious of putting money into it and then it turning back to exactly the same situation we are. You know what? It's 6 of one, half dozen of another. You fix it up and you encourage more people to come and we run into the same problem. So I think, we just have to bite the bullet on this one and try to do the best we can to make it enjoyable for the rest of the community. And if we have the same problem, then we have to address it then.
Well, the thing about the permanent gating is that we can control when the gates go out and
Right.
close. So if it starts to become a problem, it gets blocked off, right?
The mayor mentioned that the electric ice reservice could be pushed back. I know nothing about that. So is
This is-
this a possibility? Oh, that's what it's called? Oh, is that a possibility?
I'll let you know. I don't think we've just been given an idea what it looked like. You guys had one, you tried it out. I don't think there's been an actual budget item pushed forward to buy one, has there?
$200,000.
So in
Potential.
Yeah.
last year's bylaw, there was an
Was there?
approved
Okay.
amount, but because
Oh,
there's
okay.
additional costs when we piloted it, it actually had a proper quote done. It's higher than what was in last year's bylaw, so it does come back forward for decisioning.
So is that 200,000 changed?
So
Correct, yeah, it was 200,000 last year and then
Yeah.
we're asking for an additional 50,000.
Okay.
So that's why it's back in front of us.
What's ours is Alpine, is it not?
Olympia,
Olympia, how many, we have two of them, correct? An older one at the Civic Pet shop
correct.
and a new one here. Where are we on this one? Like, are we starting to get nickel and dime? Do we have a few years left on it? Where are we?
It's starting to cost incrementally more each year with repairs and stuff. It's hit the 11-year mark now.
Good.
They tend to go anywhere from 8 to 12 years depending. So could you push it another year? I think we could. Theoretically, yes.
So the electric one, the cost of the electric one, I'm assuming that is your charging station hookup, the whole ball of wax. You buy it, you get the whole thing, everything,
Correct.
your upgrade to your electrical and all the rest of that kind of stuff.
Correct. And then training on the new machine and everything.
Is there, again, I'm gonna ask you to look into your crystal ball, is there trade-in value for the two we have? Or would it be better for us to auction them out?
The one at Public Works is pretty much worthless.
Worthless, okay.
You might get a couple $1,000s for it. The current one we have, I would keep just
As a
because
backup.
in case something happens, it is very advantageous to have a redundancy and a backup.
Okay. Good to know. Just was wondering because we've kind of adopted a policy of, at one point in time, we gave, actually, the Olympia we gave it to, I think, somewhere in Brookmere, we just gave it away.
Yeah, I believe that.
And we're not doing that anymore. We're getting ROI, even if it's a couple $1,000, it's a couple $1,000 we didn't have yesterday. So, and yeah, so anyway. Counselor Egan,
Yeah, just one more thing. I was. So just lost my train of thought now. But I guess I'll have to wait.
let's go to Counselor Petrosi. We'll come back to you. Counselor Petrosi.
So the second one that's at the works yard, it's just a spare, just in case ours, the one we have at the rink breaks down. Is that?
Correct. We pull it out a couple times a year just to use it for a few days, just to make sure everything is working on it.
But it is working and.
Correct.
So it is worth some money selling it used or?
Yeah, to a super small community that may need it. Yeah,
Right.
You could
Okay.
get something for it.
Thank you.
Hey, can I ask a question hypothetically?
Sure.
Why do we still have that old time clock in the any reason why we have that old clock at the back now that we have the center one? Every time I go to a hockey game, I look at that thing and I think, what the hell are we doing here? Or just wondering why is that like something that we've decided needs to be part of our arena or any idea? I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just wondering why it's still there. It's been 20 years.
I'm not sure why that.
See, I have an idea. I think we should pull it down, put some sky boxes up there and then rent them out. There you go. No?
I think it's a good idea.
Anyway, that's just my thought. So you feel that we could get probably one more season out of the Olympia?
I think we could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Counselor Egan, she's back.
Yes, thank you. Has there been an estimate on what it's going to cost to charge it? Like what would the electrical, the hydro for that?
I do not have those numbers on what it would cost to charge.
Well, I think that would be the same as offsetting. This one runs on propane, does it not?
Correct.
So we have a propane and then you got to preheat the water and all the rest. So I imagine those costs would even each other out.
I would say it would be cheaper for the electrical and the propane for sure. And then you're also looking at the safety of, no longer emitting,
Carbon dioxide.
fumes, carbon dioxide into the building and whatnot, right? So
Was there a line item saying how much how much propane costs us?
I don't know if there's
it's
a line item for
it's
that.
bundled into our materials and supplies for the arena. I don't have a,
In 1-2 760 1556 will be the propane.
Starting to sound like Adam. What's my license plate number?
Are you laughing at me?
Yeah. I said when you blurted it out that fast, you start to sound like Adam with the license plates, right? So, or
I
what?
have no interest in that level of.
So at this point, we're going to take a break for lunch. We're at 11:52, so people probably need to go to the bathroom. So. Yep.
So before we move on from any of these sections, if we could just review any decision points, make sure Kevin has the right direction on these things. Because we've had a lot of conversations here, and if there's something in the way of direction that Kevin needs, I think we need to make sure he gets it to move forward.
I think we've agreed that we're going to push the Olympia one more year.
Okay.
I think that's what we've agreed to, unless council has an opposition to that. No opposition? I think for myself, are we, the Civic Center siding and roof situation, is that something we want to look at this year if we can, grant funded?
can I,
Do we want to use the gas tax towards that and actually pencil it as funded out of our gas tax reserve? So that we can actually get quotes and move forward on it.
Yes. I agree, because the longer we wait, more it costs.
Councilor Baxter.
I think that's great because the Civic Center is used. And if we let it slide, we could be into way more money than this, and I would be okay with that.
So maybe what we'll do is let's just start at the top here. So we've got City Hall bottom floor, reserve funded. This is the floor out here we're talking about, right?
That one got decision in a resolution, so I've put a check mark on that one because we did decide to
Okay.
move forward.
Oh,
on it.
right.
Yeah.
I guess I should look. AEDs, all remaining facilities reserve funded. I think that's a no brainer considering what happened at the pool. I don't think we should even consider not even looking at that one. So I would say that's a move on that one. City Hall front doors. I know we have to do something, but people get pretty panicky on those doors and they ruin them. I mean, it would be okay if they were wearing out, but we're seeing user damage on those, so. And the problem being is one thing that I do notice every once in a while is when we are closed for lunch, the door doesn't latch correctly, and next thing we'll go out a bunch of tourists in here. And people upset because they can't use the bathroom, so. I think the city hall front doors are something we probably should think about, because it's the entrance to where we do business here, and you don't want to look like you're kind of half-assing everything together with binder twine. And so, is everybody cool on that one? Okay. Gym equipment, replacement reserve funded. So I go to the gym quite a bit over there, and most of that stuff is fairly new, from what I've seen. What are we talking about new over there? I noticed there was a bunch of new stuff last year.
Yeah, so we have replaced a few items there. We've replaced the treadmills over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Some of the other cardio equipment is quite old. It may not look it, but it's getting up there in age. And then all of our what do you call it? The stationary equipment, like the pec decks
Mhm.
and all that stuff. They're old. They're very old.
Okay.
So what we're finding with this budget, sorry,
It's 15.
is that all of the budget is getting eaten up with the cardio equipment replacement cycle. So the treadmills and all the things that get worn heavily.
So the treadmills are the most used.
Yes,
They are the most used in there.
and we're not getting to some of the weight
Yeah.
equipment. And so the intention was to try and pair a cardio piece and a weight piece
Okay.
every year, such that we actually finally replace the gym equipment on the weight side that may be original. There's one seat that. Yes,
And I think what you have to understand, just because I've been at the pool for a number of years, people get very attached to certain things that happen in that pool. Like when the bottom hot tub isn't working, the lady in the wheelchair is very upset because she can't get to the top one. When the heated, or when the leisure pool, the roundy isn't warm enough, then the seniors can't do their exercise. I hear about it. When one of the treadmills go down, people are very upset. So I think I like the idea of doing that. So, what do we want to do here? Okay. Okay, let's go on that. Pool deck resinous floor. Can you explain where that is?
So that is the pool decking that everyone walks on.
Okay.
It's getting to end of life. We're noticing a lot of cracks and depreciations. It's something that we believe needs to be fixed. We were aiming to hopefully get it passed for this year, as we're going to be in an extended shutdown due to our
Right.
mechanical and resinine being finished. So thought we would tie in a bigger project like this, because it is about a 21-day turnaround for that floor to be cured, prepped, everything. So
Now, will that remove the tile? Is it would it be a smooth floor with some sort of? I'm just wondering what the floor looks like, because the last thing I want is people slipping all over.
it would be the same
Same
floor
story.
that's there. So it would do all the pool decking, change rooms,
Okay.
bathroom area, all of that.
And is there a possibility that if that decided to degenerate, somebody could end up getting cut? And I'm assuming somebody could step on a piece and we could have a problem?
We could have that problem with the cracks and stuff, being in an area that is highly used with water, could start getting into the foundations and things like that.
So pool deck resinous floor. It's 152. I'm just, okay, we'll get back to that. So resinous floor, we're good on? The curling rink chiller replacement, do we want to put this one on hold? CL? CL? Do we want to put this one on hold for further information? Or what do we want to do?
I think it'd be pretty tough. I mean, what we heard before is that end of life. The most important thing is that you understand that, it is a specific item to the curling rink. However, if it goes down, the curling rink's not operating, so.
I see anybody opposed? Okay, we'll move on that one. So electric ice resurfacing, we probably agreed to push that another year. Okay, we'll push that a year. Cadet Hall HVACAC Reserve Fund. So Ryan, just a question. I know we use that building a lot. And I know the cadets use it a lot. Is that completely gone or is it kind of works when it feels like it or what happens over there?
So currently there is no AC,
Okay,
it's just heat. So that building in the summer does get very warm in there. There's limited doors to open for airflow. And then the current unit that is in there, the heater, it's not sufficient.
so do we make some money off that building, obviously, with the church and the cadets, or do we fund the cadets their part?
We make a nominal amount of money off that building currently, but just because we are not charging what we could because of the state of which the building is in.
Okay.
Right? If improvements were made, we could definitely charge more for renting it out.
Moving forward on that, we're cool. Okay, we're cool on that. I think Councillor Egan has the former CPO with 100,000. I think the idea of probably moving forward and finding out what we can do is probably sound advice. So let's do that. Spirit Square Phase 1 and 2 reserve fund. To be honest with you, I think we need to move forward on that. As we're talking about downtown revitalization, we're talking about making it safe and attractive, because right now it's very unattractive. So if there's no opposition, I think we should move forward on that one. The next one, Rotary Bandshell Gate enclosure. That's where I've got a little bit of an issue. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. That kind of almost seems to be an event to see who can rip it out first. Maybe those people have moved on. I don't know. I know that there has been homeless in there. I know there's been fires in there. I know the RCMP have been called in there. But again, I'm just wondering, we don't use it a ton. I mean, we use it for the 1st of July and some music in the park. And almost everything, do we see a lot of vandalism in there? Ryan, do we?
We do see a lot of graffiti in there. Not so much now that the Arts Council has decorated it inside, but we do get a lot in and around that building for sure.
So it's grant contingent, yes. So sure, why not? If it's grant contingent. Civic Center siding roof, also grant contingent.
If
But I
I
think
can just speak on that quickly, the Civic Center siding and roofing. I did get a quote about a year and a half back from a local contractor, and it is about triple what this number is
Mhm.
to do the siding and roofing.
Yeah. So I think with that, and just redoing my home from the first time I did it 25 years later, I paid twice as much 25 years later for the exact same thing, same size. So I'm nervous about not only the roof, insurance telling us we have to do it at some point, that'll happen, but also damage that could come along with that. I don't know if you want to move on that with grant contingent and see how it goes.
I'll be getting a study done on the roof, but it is
How about we?
in deteriorating shape for
How
sure.
about we put a question mark beside that till you get your study? Okay. And then you can give us the whole lowdown. Nicola Valley repaint roof beams. I have to say honestly that we need to move forward on that because there's so much nice work that's been done below, and then you look up at those rusted out beams and it's very unappealing to look at that. I know it's cosmetic, but all that work has been done down below, and then you've got those rusty beams hanging there.
So just to clarify, Mayor Garretts, are you interested in funding that out of the gas tax reserve as a funded project?
That would be up to council to decide what they would like to do. I'm not aware of how it can be funded, so.
That's what I would do.
So, Ryan, this would be done at the same time you're doing
As the check.
something else?
Yes.
That way it's all done at the same time?
Ideally, yes.
So how would we want to go with that? I mean, it's not critical, but it's just aesthetically, it doesn't look great.
Can you still apply for a grant?
Sure.
So we haven't identified any streams over the last 2 years, other than the 7 million that we have the application in for. If that gets approved, we might be able to factor this into that strategic priorities fund, 7 million, and leave the money in the underlying gas tax reserve. But that application hasn't been decisioned yet because there's federal and provincial stakeholders involved. But we did swing for that last year. So that could be part of the scope if we get approved. But it's helpful for me to know whether it moves forward regardless of that.
Okay, so how much of the gas tax do we already just use? Was it 200,000?
So because we put a question mark beside it, we said we would come back with the report and then council can decide.
No,
based on the
prior to that, I thought we said we would go for something because we take it out of the gas tax.
So that was the Civic Center roof that we were going to take out of the gas tax. We've decided to question mark it until the report is done.
Okay.
So we haven't actually penciled anything against the reserve yet. So this could be applied.
What's in that reserve?
So there's about 3 million. Have to look at where we landed at the end of this year.
No, again, like I said, I know that the roof beams are kind of just a site thing. It's not critical at this point in time for holding the building up.
But if we have the money and you can still, you
Go
know,
ahead, Hugh.
yeah, I think
Yep.
I
Okay.
think.
because they're already having a closure.
Think if we're gonna close down the pool for that amount of time, we should do all the things be necessary so that we don't do it in the future. But how much of this is gonna come from TRE, because it is part of theirs too.
Actually, it is not. They have pretty much relinquished any kind of ownership on the TNRD. I approached them about helping with the mechanical room. The answer was no. So to me, they have no say any longer.
But I think it's beneficial if we do it all at the same time, so that way in the future, we're not closing it down for long stretches and losing revenue.
No problem. So let's jump back up to the increase ECDev advertising to 60% of the 35,000. What does that give us? If somebody could explain that to me?
So the intention was we have a number of grant funded streams that are ongoing in 2026 and to begin executing on some of the work that's come out from those contractors. So actually taking the strategy that's been presented and buying some advertising, launching some concepts in Vancouver, et cetera, that promote the city, some of our advantages for bringing business here.
Okay.
So it will be an advertising campaign.
Okay.
Based on the design within grant funded projects.
Councilor Hogan.
My question, if I may, I would like to go back to the Civic Center and siding. So the budget here, it was 235, but now you're saying that it can be 3 times that, correct?
Correct. The quote I got from a local contractor was in and around 670,000.
So are we gonna go with 3 quotes like we normally do?
We would have to at that rate, yes.
So let's suppose
Minimum.
that it's around that number, 650. So how much money can we get from the gas tax?
So I'll have to recalibrate based on that level. I know that there's enough savings on the pipe bridge that we can accommodate probably about 400,000, but 670, I'd want to go back and check. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to see 3 quotes for sure. Cause my roof started at 18 grand and I ended up at 8 with 3 quotes. So.
Yeah. I have a question. We're on vinyl siding. Is there any chance we could think about going to a hardy board of some type?
Definitely, we could.
Because then we're not doing this every 20 years.
I think, CL.
Thank you, Woodford. Question, obviously splitting the siding up from the roofing, I guess, is there 100% need to group them together at this point right now? Siding's probably less of an impact on the overall security of the building. Thoughts on that?
That's correct. I would 100% go towards getting that roof done. Yep, first. It is by far #1 priority over the siding.
You know, there are siding revitalization companies up there that can actually redo your vinyl siding. They're out there, so you might want to look at that at some point, but I think.
And as a follow-up question then as well, is there much ability, the siding's not that complicated, all things considered, is that something our staff could pick away at over time as a project? If we had supplies?
Potentially. I would have to ask a couple of them if they're, I know we do have a gentleman who was in carpentry before he signed on with us. Maybe he does have some siding experience. I know he was a steel stud framer, so it might be something that he may be able to do.
Well, I do know with the renovation work we're doing around here right now, staff is contributing a lot to helping that along with a lot of the work that's going on in there and it's saving us money. So it's definitely worth thinking about my mind anyway. So
Sure. Okay. More questions? Let's break for lunch. Back at 1.
We got definitive yes, but they didn't say no, so I'm gonna mark it as a yes. We can triple check that. Okay.
You need to restart the recording? Okay. Nope. Yeah, we're good. Good for you. To go. Wipe your face off. And we're back. CFO.
So, the rest will be up to direction of council. I don't have any capital, but I do have strategic input that's needed from council for my portfolio. So as we're thinking about development uplift or non-market change, as we see development activity in the community, I need to know how we want to treat that from a taxation and reserve contribution perspective. So, simple example, new properties come on, they're constructed, we generate an additional 100,000 in property tax revenue from those. How much do we want to go towards our infrastructure deficit? I think is 7 million in the asset management plan. We're saving about 3 right now. And how much do we want to go towards trying to reduce tax burden on the base? So you could make a all or nothing decision, or you could give me a prorated decision, split a pie into 2 percentages. Just something to be thinking about. In 2024, I think, non-market change from a assessment role perspective was only like $5,000. Like, it was immaterial. But there's enough activity in town now where it's starting to become or could be somewhat meaningful taxation dollars wise. So need to understand how council wants to apportion that money.
Councilor Tracy.
So if we were to put 50% of that into our debt, are we keeping up with the interest, or are we still lagging behind with what we would normally put in towards that fund? And this additional, are we keeping up? Are we reducing it?
So, I mean, ultimately, our long-term target on reserves in the asset management plan is 7 million in annual contributions plus the wastewater treatment and guard. So we're contributing about 3 million now. So we still have quite a significant infrastructure deficit to go.
Great.
Which is why there's an opportunity to try and at least any new money that comes online, decide how much should go into reserve for capital investment and how much do we want to try and reduce the tax burden on the base, who has to bear the 4.9% or whatever we decision when we're done. It's an opportunity that a lot of the lower mainland communities use because there is so much development activity. That's where a lot of their reserve contributions come from. And it's an opportunity that we can employ on a smaller scale.
Councilor Egan.
Thank you. So if we were to split it 50-50, what percent would that decrease our proposed tax increase?
So it'll ultimately depend on the completed or revised assessment roll, which is due by March 31st. So I don't have it yet, which is why I'm trying to see if we can get direction up front, because the bylaws have to come out very quickly for council between that time and May 14th.
Hard to make a decision
So
without that.
I need to know upfront how you want to treat it, because I won't get a chance to present it and then ask for feedback in April.
So I'm going to tap you on the shoulder as a professional. What is your suggestion what would look like something that is good and responsible and works correctly? Let me put it that way. If you had to make that decision, which way would you go? And because I'm not an accountant, so.
No, I mean, obviously, we're aware that we've been on a reserve saving journey from, a pretty low starting point. I think we've made really good progress in the 2 years. I think we highlighted a 239% increase in contribution rate between 2023 and 2025. So I think we're off to a good start, but we know that the long term is that it's 7 million plus for infrastructure. So I want to make sure there's at least an opportunity to consider that. I also recognize that we've done 2 years of 12% on the municipal levy side, which is crunchy, 12 and 11. We're down to something a little more moderate at 4.9. Currently, we haven't added any new contributions out of the municipal levy to reserves for this year's budget. This presents an opportunity to consider a partial contribution that doesn't have to be borne by the same base that's paid for 2 years of 12%. So it's an opportunity. And it's really up to council.
That's a good, that's a good, good politician. Excellent job.
Good politician.
No, but this is 100% your decision, right? I do think there's an opportunity to split it, should you so choose. I think given that the infrastructure deficit is 3 versus 7 million, you could easily say put it all into infrastructure as well. I mean, I just want to make sure that we're aware and being deliberate about your thoughts and policy around that.
So again, I'm going to tax you with a question. If we did split, which one is the more pertinent or important? I'm thinking about the 7 million with the interest and all the rest, that kind of stuff. And then I think about the reserves. So like if we did, let's say a 70-30 or a 60-40, which one would we want to actually make sure got the 60%? Just because, you know, we don't want interest to continue. I mean, interest on 7 million bucks has got to be a few dollars here and there. So I'm just
Well,
wondering.
that's what the reserve contribution needs to be to fund replacement value over the life cycle of our assets. So we haven't borrowed for that yet.
Good.
We're trying to make reserve contributions so that we have matching funds for grant opportunities. And then, yes, there will be a debt component, probably pretty sizable at some point when we go to pull the trigger on things like the wastewater treatment plant. But, you know, so that's 30 to 60 million dollars. You know, we have a couple million saved after the last 2 years. So we're somewhere, but we still have quite a journey to go. So what do we want to try and accomplish in this 5-year window is really what I'm asking. And then we'll have
I
a
think
chance
you're
to,
leaning towards 100% contribution to, yeah,
well,
I
I mean,
think
I
so.
certainly want council
That's
to
the way
consider that,
playing
right?
out to me.
But you'll have a chance to decision the water and sewer parcel taxes in the infrastructure section, and those will flow directly into reserve for water sewer. So think about this more on the general municipal side. So things like the fire department, roads. How much do we want to be able to invest in replacing asphalt that needs to be replaced? Things like that. So that's what this presents an opportunity for. Right now, we're only saving 100,000 a year for transportation. The 2 projects that are in the financial plan are over $1 million, right? So I think Houston, and Airport Road are in there right now. Those are like $500,000 projects. 100,000 a year isn't taking us super far. So things like this present an opportunity to be directed towards those areas that are separate from water.
Councilor Hogan.
Thank you. So I think that for me, what are priorities? I would like to continue putting money aside into the reserve, but also I want to keep the tax rate the lowest as possible. So I would go with 60-40, so 60 towards reserves and the 40,
Councilor Carney.
I would be very comfortable with that. I was going 50-50, but I would be comfortable going 60-40. Yeah, I would be very comfortable going 60-40.
See a bunch of nodding heads, so that's the way we're going to go. 60-40. CEO, any?
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I think you're on the right track with that. You have to remind yourself that a lot of what's coming online is also growth related. So, you know, we do have the DCC bylaw that we're working with as well that generates some funds, but contributing to the infrastructure as well as the basic services that have to be supplied overall for this growth as well. There has to be, in my mind, some kind of a proportioning. And I think overall the capital investment is going to be a larger percentage than the overall operation to keep things going from a growth perspective. So I think you're right on track with where you're at for myself. So yeah, but I think a little bit of both because all of this goes towards operations and capital. So.
Thank you. Any other questions on that?
Any other questions in my portfolio?
Yep. Under CFO. Take a moment here. No, lot been done on transit. We get a mark that I didn't think we were gonna hit. Counselor Rogan.
So, question, so contracted services, HR. And recruitment as well. So can you expand on that?
Certainly. So you'll notice on the summary sheet that contracted services was reduced by 35,000 in starting for 2024. And recruitment was reduced by 15,000. So this is what remains after that $50,000 reduction. So on the HR side, there's a few things that are left behind that legally we have to do, but 35,000 was a nice to have that got removed. In terms of that service, we're left with things like doctor visits, some legal consulting on HR issues, etc. So it's pretty bare bones after the $50,000 reduction. On the recruitment side, we still have to advertise for jobs as they become available. So we do have some vacancies even right now that we're having to manage. And then if we're placing anyone from outside the community, there's a moving expense allowance that generally gets considered in the offer. And that has to come out of the recruitment budget as well. So this is what's left after the 50,000. And I think the manager has done an excellent job of managing within that over the last 2 years.
Sure, Counselor Turn.
What would be the, just under 24,000 for HR recruitment?
Just explain that.
Oh, I thought you
So that's
said.
the advertising that we do.
Oh, I thought you said
positions
the other one.
and the moving expense allowances.
Anything else, Counselor Turn? We can always come back and find something.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So next up, we've got the combined CAO office and development services for consideration.
Is your mic on, Counselor Turner, for a question, or you just, okay? Oh, there we go, Counselor Turner. No, sorry, okay. CAO and Development Services. Yes.
I would like.
Counselor Turner.
I would like to look at the $40,000 that we spend on employee recognition. That's a huge amount. I know that, for example, we gave them half a day off at Christmas. We then had their Christmas dinner that they it was paid for. And then a month later, we had a pancake breakfast. So I'm just wondering if maybe we could look at exactly how employee recognition is spent. I know that a lot of companies don't receive any recognition whatsoever. So I would like to, if possible, tighten this budget up a bit for the 40,000.
So I'll just provide one comment before we turn things over to the CAO. So last year we made the change to only consider proudly serving merit merchandise every 2 years. So you'll notice in the profile that this year is 40 and then it drops down to 25. So that was one of our cuts that we made last year, is to only consider that proudly serving merchandise every second year. Now I'll turn things over.
CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Something that you may not be acutely aware of as well is that in recent times, I believe CFO can probably speak to this as well, but there used to be pockets for employee recognition through all the different budgets. So the effort was made to pull them all into one spot so that they're probably a little bit more visible as well and not strewn out for all the different budget areas. So this represents, the entire city community rather than having everything split down between other budget areas. So not sure how that impacts your thought process at all, but if you take the variation for the proudly serving merit merchandise down to the average of 25,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, there was somewhat of a consolidation and a reduction in the budget when we removed it from all the different budget areas in the different departments. That way it's a little bit easier to manage. That makes sense. Do we have a number that supports that at all notionally in your head?
I'd have to go back and confirm the exact savings from the consolidation.
Okay.
But the intention was that it get managed centrally so that it was approved events that are available to all of staff and council to attend. So we've got the golf tournament, we have a breakfast, and there's the December dinner, in addition to the fluctuations regarding the proudly serving merit merchandise. So that's kind of the scope of what's in that line today.
That's pretty smooth.
It's a council decision.
Saying it's not perfect yet.
So the whole community gets that. Councilor Petrosi.
Yeah, just is the Christmas dinner, some of these other things, are they social club funded? Like you have a social club that actually pays for some of this, or are you looking at maybe using the social club?
Components for sure. I believe the prizes related thing was social club related. Right, and I believe you guys made some decisions in before the last recognition event, not to support any prizes. I believe we brought that to you for that because the social club looked after it after that. So opportunities all the time, and remembering that a lot of the things like the pancake breakfast, when we take these opportunities to bring staff together, we're building a lot of culture, which in a lot of cases can augment how they do their work, brings more of a positive feeling towards things. So I definitely get the sentiment, but I think in the last few years, the effort to centralize and label it in one spot so it's not hidden all over the place, I think it allows you to definitely have a look at it and determine what's important. So we don't have to look at it in a whole bunch of different places. But there is a lot of value to staff. We have a lot of good feedback on things like pancake breakfast. We're trying to develop a little bit of a opportunity for coffee engagement with different facilities. So the fire department did one recently. I believe a few of you attended that. When we get the work done downstairs, we're going to try and host something down there. These are pretty small amounts. They go a long way for staff to connect with each other and to understand how each one of them does work. And these are, in my mind, are very good small investments in building culture. Take that as you wish. So.
Councilor Sharni relates to that.
I can agree with that, the building the culture and things like that, but I do have a problem with taxpayers paying for employees' Christmas dinner. Most organizations, you pay for your own either through a social fund or you personally pay for it. I don't think taxpayers should be paying for a Christmas dinner. The pancake breakfasts, yeah, I might let that one slide, but I think, I worked for the school district for 25 years, and after 25 years, the only recognition we got was a crappy little pin. So, I think we have to draw a fine line where we go overboard on something. And I think we have to look at, if they want a Christmas dinner, I think that's great, but I think the employees should be paying for their own Christmas dinner and not staff and not taxpayers paying for that.
No, I totally understand the sentiment there, and like I said, I look at the benefit on things, and if we want to be an employer of choice or continue to be an employer of choice in the valley, there's certain things we can do that, come with high prices. There's certain things we can do that come with lower prices. Overall, for the organization, I don't see this myself as being a number for the value we get out of it, but I'm definitely looking to take direction on it, 100%.
Councilor Egan.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with any of this stuff. I think they should be spread out a little bit more because it was like Christmas dinner and then boom, January. Now you've got a pancake breakfast. There's nothing. I'm not sure when the golf tournament is later in the summer.
August, September.
Yeah, so maybe it could be spread out a little bit more. That'd be my only suggestion. And do they all get free city wear?
There's been, I think I got a coat when I got here. Still got it. There's been a little bit of that. Yep.
So that's the fluctuation from year to year. So right now we are premising a year in which clothing is available for staff. Next year in 2027, it goes back down to 25,000. So there's no budget for any clothing items. So for any staff that have joined since we did that about a year and a half ago, they don't have any merchandise at this time. So
It
there's
goes
a
from this year is 40,000 and next year it's 25 and then it goes to 40,000 again.
correct. So we're premising proudly serving merit merchandise for staff to wear only every 2 years now.
Okay.
So that reduction got made last year. This was a 40,000 across line item. We've already tried to factor that in.
I just personally don't, I think that those are things that, we don't really need to have. That's my personal opinion after being employed by the provincial government.
That's
And
the problem right
I know, what that's what I'm saying, it's taxpayers' dollars, provincial or municipal. And somewhere along the line, we have to be accountable for the taxpayers' dollars. And, I look at how many employees that are employed in merit in other occupations, every 2 years, do they get something, from their employer saying, congratulations, you've been here, 2 years. How many get, free Christmas dinners and pancake breakfasts and golf tournament? I think that would be very small minority of people that receive those benefits. And so, we set ourselves up for people looking at, staff employees saying, wow, look what, all the things you get with my tax dollars.
Well, I kind of have to disagree to a certain point. These aren't the same people that have to get up at 4:30 in the morning on Christmas to plow roads. Or stand in a -31 up to their ass in cold water trying to fix a water main break. So I think those kind of things need to be looked at. If you're doing that kind of stuff, hey, I worked for the mine. Every year we got a free Christmas dinner, we got a softball tournament and a golf tournament. Every year.
Two different things, that the fellow that's working in the dip is not someone who's working in the office, so you're overlapping. And we do have, contractors that have to go out and do things too.
But we're not in charge of contractors. So we're in charge of how we retain our workers and how we say thank you to our workers and how we keep our workers wanting to stay within the community. So you have a situation. If you want to push that forward, please go ahead and we can go from there.
Do they have to pay for their golf fees?
No, that's been covered.
Okay.
Councilor Petrosi.
What is the social club deduction per paycheck? Can you tell us that or,
I
Maybe-
think it's a volunteer, they voluntarily put X amount and I don't think there's a deduction, is there?
It's not a payroll deduction, so at the golf tournament, we sell tickets
Yeah.
and things like that, and that generates prizes that we've deployed into the Christmas dinner prizes.
you ever think of a payroll deduction? Because that seems to work quite well.
Well, unionization probably would have something to say about that.
Do you think? Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
most
just
definitely.
putting it out there that,
Yeah, you gotta remember you're dealing with a union here, Paul, so you
Right.
can't just suddenly decide something. So you got a union.
well, it'd be, nice to have payroll deduction then. Yeah, a little bit of both.
It does work well that way, but I think we still have to offer choice.
Yeah.
And ability to opt out. In my world, I like to try and find as many things that allow people alternatives. If somebody doesn't go to the golf tournament, and this was something I think last year where if you don't go to the golf tournament, you have to work for the afternoon. What other things can we do for people if they don't want to go golfing or if they don't go to the Christmas party? So there is some inequity built in there, but a lot of that is by choice. But having a range of things for people to participate in, I guess, helps cover everybody, I think. So, but definitely a payroll deduction on that has worked in a lot of other places I've been. And it provides good source of funds. Nobody notices $2 or $3 per paycheck that much.
Right.
And it builds up pretty fast for a decent
So
sized organization.
would you look at pursuing maybe something like that,
We
looking
can-
at it?
We can definitely have the conversation if that helps and we can use that to contribute to the funding.
Right.
There is an impact on staff because it is their money at that
Mhm.
point, and they might be able to direct things a little bit better, how it gets unrolled to them.
Right.
Is part of the conversation, but definitely, I've seen it work well.
So, yeah, thank you.
And once again, in my world, culture gets built from within. So if we give staff more opportunity to help build that culture through this type of thing, they have more control of it. I'm 100% in support of it if they do it. I mean, if we end up with everybody going to their corners and not interacting, we're not winning at all. So.
Counselor Baxter.
I think this type of thing is great. Staff need to have things where they're looking forward to going to an event. I work at the school district. They have a free lunch every Christmas that we go to. They also give us $25 towards buying staff merchandise every single year. So if other businesses, my husband worked at MCon. Every year they paid for a Christmas dinner for all of the employees of MCon. Other businesses in town pay for employees to have a Christmas dinner or an event to go to. I think it builds good culture because staff get to interact with each other outside of the workspace and then they get to build relationships. I think it's a benefit to this community to have it.
Counselor Hogan.
Yeah, I am with Councillor Egan. I think I don't have any issues with how it is presented. My main concern, and again, I'm going to speak about all the departments, and I have already brought that up before. It is about determining or doing a job assessment in all the responsibilities, job descriptions to understand who is doing what. So I feel that if we were able to do that, so either, it should be before budget. So that's something that that can save a lot of money, as you can see from every budget. So the biggest expense, it is payroll in every single area. So if we are able to do that assessment, it would give us a lot of input of how we want to move forward. And again, it would help also the staff to make sure that we don't have duplicity, that they are doing what they are supposed to do. So I don't have any issues of how are they presented.
So probably that would be something, maybe when we talk about the managers at the beginning where the managers present, maybe we tie something in at that point in time. So we get all that, okay. Something that could be just put on the docket if we could. Counselor Charney.
Under planning and development operating, it says staff wants an additional $160,000. So they want 75,000 for the financial feasibility analysis. But one time we were waiting for Tony Luck, as this was a provincial requirement. We were waiting for Tony Luck to see if we really had to do this. Have we heard back from Tony Luck on this?
I would say with the look on everybody's face, the answer is no. I mean, I haven't heard anything or.
So are we going to, we've got the 75,000 on the docket. Are we going to look into that? Because that is a provincially mandated requirement.
I totally forgot about it, so you mentioned it.
Hmm?
Said I totally forgot about it, until you mentioned it. Yes, so I guess.
All right. Okay, so if I have this correct, thank you, Your Worship. We have, you're questioning the December presentation with 160,494 total at the bottom with a financial feasibility analysis on the 75,000
Correct.
that's in there.
Correct.
So I believe we can call on the Director Development Services. I believe he has some new information on that to share on that project.
It's not here.
And all right. What I heard this morning is it's not optional that we have to do this work, whether or not it prices out at 50 or 75,000. It's got quotes in and around those areas. 75 might be on the high end of that. But we don't really know until we actually scope the work and get full quotes in on it. Talking to an MLA about whether or not we can be able to opt out at this point where we can, it's a requirement is what I understand.
Okay.
Are we gonna get some documentation on that? I'm
He's probably going home for lunch. We can circle back on this if you like when he gets back.
No,
If
I
he
mean,
had just done the
it's
research.
fine if it's gonna become, it's just we'd like to see it, so we know in the future. Like if something has come from the province saying, hey, this is the way it is, kind of like to see that part.
Yeah, he just brought it up to me this morning in passing, leading into other things.
Yeah.
And
I'm not actually looking for his confirmation. I'm looking for the province's confirmation. I'd like to see that from the province, actually. Because I mean, we should have been notified that that's the way it was going to be, and then, I mean, that should be coming to mayor and council. in every community that's the way it's going to be. So I would prefer that to come from whatever minister or ministry has decided we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, since he's just done the research, he mentioned it, I believe we can pull that out pretty quick.
Okay, good. So we'll get your answer for you, Councillor Tron.
Okay. Okay. Again, contracted services, but. And then what's there?
I think if I may, is something that I have to explain to people a lot, at least on the staff side of municipal government, especially when we're hiring people that are young and keen and technical that want to grow, you know, in a design capacity or in their career in general, is municipal government tends to be very administrative of nature. So we end up having to lean on contractor services a lot to get the specialized work done. And we have to accept ourselves that because we're very administrative and we have to cover many areas administratively all the time, that we don't get the luxury of what I call the more fun things, which are let's get into design work and project work as much. Development services has been doing a fair bit on the project side in the last year or so, but it's come at quite a cost because we're not getting some other things done. Even though we've had a banner year in that group as far as revenues and whatnot, it's taxing the staff quite a bit because we're pushing the in-house work on them, which they enjoy doing, which is probably the only thing keeping them basically above water right now. Just a comment. Separating out, that's why we do a lot more contracted services, because we don't have the time or necessarily to fully develop skills to be able to do a lot of the detail work on everything that needs to be done. We administer it, we don't do it.
Any other questions on this one? On infrastructure. So I'm just gonna start off real quick here, Mike. I'm gonna go to source 1173802255 Central Park concession revenue. So I see we're advertising again. I'm assuming the people that are in there are no longer in there. Yep, you're up.
Thank you. That's actually under the community services portfolio.
Oh, is it?
I
Okay.
can give you a hand on that if you like to. Ryan's here, can probably talk to it as well, and there's Bernesh, he'll be able to give us some explanations as well. Which we'll talk about that. My understanding of that is, we were running at the end of the contract term for the current operator in there. And they were looking at going into a 5-year term with that. And we can't just give it to one person who's been doing the work in there, so we went out to public tender again.
Okay.
And those proposals will be analyzed, and whether it's the same vendor given
Okay.
something, but we can't just give a 5-year deal to somebody without going to public to make sure.
Thanks for clarifying that, because I just saw the ad in the paper and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, so, okay, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Charney.
Okay, so we talked about this GIS person. And my understanding is you feel that we really need to have a GIS person.
100%.
I think that maybe it's integral to the staff to have it. But then I would like to see somewhere where we cut back to pay for this person. Or you say that you're going to offset this by debt servicing costs and sales revenue.
Say that.
Yep.
I think Councillor Charney, I was trying to highlight the material drivers in this year's budget as a whole. So the GIS position is one element as a change within the operational budget. I was also highlighting the additional solid waste revenue from the fees and charges bylaw as a material change. So that table that had the 3 items listed was just to highlight the year-over-year change in the budget.
Okay. But I'm saying, I think if we need this GIS person, I think we have to find savings somewhere else to pay for that person, because we can't just keep hiring and hiring and hiring.
Well, I can,
Well, I agree with that, but you want to hire a plumber and an electrician.
If we can save on contracted services. So I mean, yes, I'll agree to hire if you can save somewhere else. I have no problems with that. But we just can't keep straining the purses over and over again.
well, all I can really say to that, and I do respect your opinion on it, but these are some of the things that have been holes in the organization for quite some time, done off the side of somebody's desk, and grossly inadequate for many years because we're so far behind on what the quality of our mapping is, quality of our data is, and our ability to function, and there's a lot of risk associated with that. The idea that we have somebody sitting, waiting for something to do that we can take out to replace with this, it doesn't exist. Everybody that I'm aware of in the organization is got more work on their plate than a 40-hour plus week will allow them to do. So I'm not really aware of anybody that doesn't put in a full shift and has more in front of them than they actually can get done. So something to consider. That's just my observations. We can disagree with that all you like, and I fully support that. But when it comes to risk of the organization, people are obviously a large cost, but they're also the one thing that fixes most of the problems that we have when they're done well. We're not asking for things that are not required. We're asking for things that are imminently needed to maintain a level of service at a quality level. Pretty much every department in the city, since we have made a change to the new platform, has been contacting our platform, wondering who's doing our work for us, because we don't have anybody doing the work for us, and they all need work done. You could take a budget for that person and you could split it between all the different departments, because they will be doing work for everybody at different times. That doesn't really help the overall cost, but it does highlight the fact that this is an integral position to the city, and it needs to be covered one way or the other, and the risk of not doing this work is actually fairly high. But we can continue moving on if that's your wish. Just there'll be a lot of things not being done, or we'll be putting a lot of square pegs in round holes trying to cover and taxing people a little bit more than they should with the skill set that's not theirs.
Councilor Baxter.
I think this is a beneficial position to have within the city. If we right now are not covering it across multiple areas, that means we could be at risk in the future. And I don't want to contract this out to other communities and it's piecemealed here, there, and everywhere. If we can have it straight across the board, I think it'd be beneficial.
Councilor Egan, or Councilor Shorty, sorry.
During the open house, I was just reading back on the documents from our open house. Like, I guess where it asked, where would you add more employees? And under development services GIS, they had only 3. But I guess the public don't understand what GIS is or does. And maybe we just have to get that out there a little bit more, what GIS is and what it's all about, right? So.
Well, it's very much a support thing. And, if I can bring us back to when I first got here, and I think we talked about this before, we're going back 3.5 years, when I sat down with the CIO of the day and we looked at all the operations, and there was no GIS person in the city. Our mapping was there, but it was behind at the time. Our staff did not trust it in order to find any of our infrastructure. They always had to go dig paper up, which cost us more time as well. And the question was asked, who's looking after the GIS? Well, the EngTech kind of does it, right? Kind of does it, was sort of the response. So they had a little bit of skills in drafting and spatial software, and they tried their best to manage it. But that same person does a lot of other things in the city. So what we did is because we had a gap in the EngTech and we had to hire one, we hired a specific set of GIS skills for a period of time while he was here, and I took all the other stuff myself while I learned about the city. And this is sort of going back to that same story. What I can tell you is that person got so busy doing GIS stuff so fast because everybody leaned on him that he was busy on that all the time. It took a fair bit of time into his tenure here before I was able to start training him on other things. So it's food for thought. It's one of those things that's kind of gray and intangible. It's really hard to explain exactly the value of them, but it's an integral part of municipal government as a basis. We need to know where our stuff is. We need to know how it's mapped. We need to have those skill sets built into things. And we could do a lot better. I mean, even our communications person who does all that pretty documentation on things. Everywhere else I've been and seen in municipal government, the GIS person does most of that. So the impression all the time is, oh, all these pretty maps, just get the GIS guy to do it. But it's so much more than that. And it, like I said, it's very hard to explain unless you're dealing with all this data and the infrastructure and the assets all the time. So Mike may have been able to do a little bit of something together on a little bit more of what you were going to put together, possibly a little bit of a narrative on it. But it's a big concern to me. That's why I pitched it at the time with the CIO of the day going, let's hire this way, see what we can do with it. And then we'll see. Unfortunately, that person moved on after a couple of years and it's been a black hole of nightmare ever since.
Mr. Moon.
I was gonna say, you've basically described everything that we would use it for, but
Yeah.
I know now the crew uses paper maps, spreadsheets, and kind of whatever's in their head, their phones to remember where stuff is. There's a base layer that we use, but again, nobody trusts it at all. I don't know what year it went in, but we print out 3 sets of map for the utilities crew at least every year. They're drawing on it, you know, and then trying to, those books sit there waiting for someone to be able to take it from there to put it into our actual GIS so that we could use it. And with our asset management software that's coming in, it's all tied in together. Well, they'll be able to have their tablet or whatever tool they're using out there, and it should pinpoint us to exactly where everything is. In the end, that's the goal.
Councilor Petrosi.
So a GIS person, we're not talking a year term. You're putting a lot of money into this person. His knowledge, you want to keep him for a good period of time, many years, I guess, right? So that's, once you hire someone, it's going to be every year. He's the guy, he's a GIS guy, and
They tend to be one of the more busy positions, or at least go-to people in an organization like this, because everybody needs that service. Controlling it's a hard part. I mean, I used to have to tell my guy where I was before, so you have to start learning to create task lists and have people fill out applications for your time, because he'd get distracted all the time because people would just come to him with, I need this, and he's busy on somebody else's stuff. You have to, you know, pretty much the most workload going through anything I've seen tends to go through that type of a position.
And the other thing is then we would stop our reliance on TNRD to get to it when they can.
Well, they just don't do it. They're just hosting our data.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything with it.
That's true.
So if we want our data updated, you know, right now, I'm probably the go-to guy who's got to find some time to take an as-built and put it in, make sure all the data is right, make sure the depth of data is there. If nobody else has the time, and I certainly don't either, but I played with it a bit and we've got a little bit of movement forward, but not much.
Okay, no. Councilor Train.
Do you still have the 1-year term for a planner on the books using the COVID funds?
Infrastructure planner,
So
yes.
there's a couple of, yeah.
Nope, that was on this year's.
Infrastructure planner.
Yes, so we turned that into that infrastructure planner role to support the long-range capital planning and asset management extension.
Okay.
And that's been done as another 1-year term with the idea that we want to try and get some long-range capital planning out of this project that we're working on in the midst of being Boyd, the GIS person as well, that would be feeding him information.
And then the 3 summer students, I have to be reminded on this. I thought we did not go with 3 summer students. I
Last
thought
year we
we
did.
went with, no, but what did we propose for this year? I thought,
Yeah, we
we
have to
didn't
say.
decide yet?
Decision point now, yeah.
Decision point now?
Ideally.
So just to bring you up to date on that, when people complained about the city looking fairly shabby, I let them know that this was a choice you made at the open houses. You put your little sticker and it basically said, get rid of 3 people, and we did, and they were unhappy with that. So they prefer the city to look better than it was. So again, your decision on how you feel on it.
Did
the
this
first time-
fall under the grave, the cemetery person too? Is
No.
that the one that we're deciding? What was the decision on that? I thought.
Yeah, 2 seasons. Yeah, that's right.
That's what we had discussed is as an option, if the cemetery is important to you,
Is
we
think
can
it
look
is.
at one to cover a lot of that cemetery work for the summer, and then put the other 2 back into what they were doing before, which is largely a lot of the weed eating, garbage emptying, and we were taking people out of other activities to cover the best we could last year.
And these are grant contingent or?
So we have already submitted applications on them, realizing that they're not approved positions, but
Right.
when the window opened for Canada Summer Jobs, we took it so that we at least had the option of discussing it.
So I'll just let you
Okay.
know, there were complaints last year about
Yep.
stuff not getting hit, and I said, well, that's the way it is. I have a question on 12325-1200 bridge inspection. Do we have a qualified person who inspects our bridge, or do we bring somebody in for that?
We bring somebody in.
Okay. And I'm assuming that's what that costing is right there. How, do we do that every single year, or do we do it multi-year, or?
We've been doing it every year. I'm trying to get us down to an inspection cycle that the engineer and their staff that do the inspections will support. The process I'm used to in Alberta, you start off with 36-month inspection cycle on a fairly new bridge, and then your timeline between inspections goes down depending on what they discover in the way of deficiencies and whatnot, right down to, we got to stand in the middle of the bridge and close it right now. So ideally, we'll get down to a point where, you know, maybe we're doing a couple a year kind of a thing, and we stretch it out a bit. But right now, because there's maintenance things identified on these things, and we're trying to figure out how best to get these activities done, because it takes some specialized workforces. The skill set is not necessarily available 100% inside the city right now to do structural work on bridges, do work over top of water courses, those kind of things. But we're still stepping through this with, let's make sure we do our due diligence and at the very least get things inspected. So if something critical comes up, we're aware of it. It's not a heck of a lot of money in the scheme of things compared to a bridge falling down or somebody getting killed, obviously, because we missed something.
Let's turn.
I don't really have anything on the capital or the parks and landscaping or capital on that. I think everything else is straightforward.
Well, I noticed on the last page, there's a 2026-2030 capital project decisions. Do we want to tackle that at this point? Okay. So the first one is Central Park ball field lighting. I mean, I think that's kind of, for me, that's a contingency on funding. It's nice to have. It will extend the season, probably would bring more later tournaments in, but that's a luxury at this point. So I would say if we can look for funding on that, that's the direction I'd like to go, funding. Everybody okay with that? Any changes there? Okay. Renewal program receptacles. Is this garbage cans we're talking about? These are the newer ones that cannot be set on fire and stuff, correct?
A little harder to get access to and whatnot and break into. They run, somewhere around $3,500 a piece.
Yeah. The rest of the benches that
Right.
are around town.
Right. Any concerns about these? Okay, we'll move on those. Renewal program benches and tables.
Similar things, the picnic tables and the benches.
And are those for
Yep, this is what we're
It's a
doing.
5-year cumulative amount.
5-year cumulative.
Yes.
Okay, any opposition to the tables? Thank you. Central Rotary Rubber Surfaces. I'm assuming this is the spray park.
No, the spray park is funded.
Oh.
So this is a grant contingent one that we're just making sure should remain grant contingent.
Okay, okay. Confirm continues to be grant so it is, yes, okay. 2030 Vote Street roundabouts, $2 million. Well, I think first of all, one of them, we have to actually have an agreement with the owners of the land up at the grasslands to expand out. So I think until we actually get there, this is probably should be kind of just pushed forward until, and then we have to upgrade, the roads and stuff. So
That's exactly why we have it out on 2030 right
yeah,
now.
for
We're
5 years.
assuming there's gonna be some progress on some of that over the next few years, so.
I think that should be an information situation because unless there's anybody, so yeah, this would be more for info over the next 5 years. 2026 municipal tractor. So municipal tractor. Now, when we talk about municipal tractors, this lawnmower? No, what is this?
The trackless, just like the other one that we've seen the last year or so out on the sidewalks.
Like a Bobcat?
No, it's the yellow one.
Oh, right,
The
okay.
Articulating,
Yes, I see. Okay. So,
and we have an older, what do you call it, tool cat? That is less. Well, it's not as heavy, so it doesn't plow snow as well. It doesn't maneuver quite as easily. So the general idea in this program was to get up to 2 machines that can do pathways and sidewalks, among other things, including field maintenance and brine spraying, things like that as well. And get them consistent and read them because the old tool cat is pretty old.
okay. Concerns? Okay, you're good on that? 4-year airport asphalt maintenance. Well, we're losing the edges. We're losing them constantly. And the more we lose the edge, the more we lose the width of the runway. So we are losing it. So I can't remember the last time the airport asphalt maintenance was done. We've got some severe cracks in the tarmac area that are getting questionable. So all it's going to take is one prop strike and we'll be sued. So that's simple. Those props aren't cheap. So over a 4-year program, I think it's probably something, unless anybody disagrees, we should push that forward.
If I may, your worship.
Yep.
Part of the idea was if we budget a little bit per year, we may not do a little bit per year. I might save it.
Yep.
And then try and do a bigger project sort of all at once as we accumulate these dollars.
And I just want to bring people up to date. We do get a lot of life flight planes that come in. And at one point in time, we had a dip in the runway. They refused to land here until that dip was fixed. And that's important that we keep it in really good shape for the life flight flights because they will not land on our airport if it's not right. So.
So it's a 4-year project. So are we looking at putting 50,000 aside every year and doing nothing until the end of 4 years, or are you going to go on as need basis?
I was gonna try and test it with a request for quotations to do what I want done and see how far I can get with, say, 1 year's worth of 50,000. If I don't like the way that price is out, we might have to save it for a bit or come up with alternate ideas of how to deliver it. But I got a long range plan for getting the runway sort of back up to snuff, all the cracks in it and everything else. It's just gonna take a little bit of time to work through it. So we don't have to spend $4 million in one shot.
Is there any way of getting BC Wildfires to help us out too? Because they use the airport for helicopters, I guess, do they? Or
They don't
any-
use the land.
They don't.
And for that matter, they're really not supposed to be on our tarmac. They're supposed to be 30 meters away from any prop plane. So they don't
Okay.
flip them over. So we
They're
have
no
to
good.
compromise. So we park them on the taxiway, which is also illegal. But with a small airport like we have no choices when it's firefighting season. And that's why one of the things we have to look at when we renew with TRK is the amount of land that you're using and the amount of land that we need to get back on that agreement, because there's areas there that we could then use for that. But right now, we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We don't get any water bombers that land here.
Hmm.
We just get gyros, we get helicopters, so they can land anywhere they want.
So we can't get any help from them.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I do believe we had some issues with the fuel spills and stuff this year, and we went after them for some damage repair on that. You can't come up to our airport, spill your aviation fuel all over the place, weaken our stuff, leave and leave a big hole. So I do believe
That didn't go anywhere. They denied any help on that and.
Well,
that's where it is
then
right
that's
now.
then that's where we start to have to have applications when they can land here and when they can't. So-
Yeah, and we'll also have to potentially put some signing up and inspection
Yep.
related to whether or not tankers are allowed. on the airport property. And it's one thing to land a helicopter. It's another thing to bring your tankers in and whatnot as well and park them on there without any kind of spill kits and stuff underneath them.
So the only reason that I think that we should be allowing tankers on there is for the high flow volume helicopters like the Sikorsky's. They can't fill up without the,
that
being
was where
pumped
the bulk
in.
of the damage came
Yeah.
from.
that's where the damage came from. And they've got the bucks to fix it. So we'll just take some tail numbers next year. But I think that's something that I think that actually is coming to policy at some point in time about firefighting, the use of the airport, the damages. We also had damage for the first time in the terminal building this year. That's never happened before. But there was damage in the terminal building from one of the crews. And yeah, it's unfortunate. So I think that is actually coming to will be coming to council for discussion. Bridge maintenance program 2026 right in front of you. So
this largely is, we haven't been able to act on the recommendations of the inspectors. So we need to start creating some programming to put some funding into how do we manage maintenance of these bridges. There's going to be some painting required on some of them. Footbridge across Lions Park, for instance. Takes a bit of specialized work unless you want to lift the bridge off because you're going to be working over a water body. So this is not stuff that we can just do slap paint on something and walk away from. So,
any concerns on that? Okay, forward. Scope inflation adjustment to shop security camera program. This is the work share, I'm assuming?
yeah, so that was money we had put in last year. The project does not move forward and it was rescoped by IT. So we're maintaining the money here. IT is going to run the project, but their recommendation was they needed this amount of dollars to get that area functioning as intended.
Okay. Any concerns? Forward. Updated storm sewer model program. That one's fairly self-explanatory. Especially after the flood. Any concerns on that one? Okay, moving forward. Scope inflation adjustment to bins in 2026. I'm assuming this is.
So it was previously approved last year, but
Okay.
because there is a small couple $1,000s in inflation,
Okay.
it's coming back for reapproval.
So we've approved it once, I guess we'll approve it a second time. Excellent. Oh, sorry, Paul.
One question on,
Councilor Petrosi.
so getting back to the summer students and you said their grant, there's going to be a grant application for 2 summer students and then a third for the cemetery, or
But we submitted for 2.
so what about the third for the cemetery? What had we decided on that?
So, and those are things we'd have to hopefully get a decision on today is GIS, where we're at with summer students that got cut last year and whether or not you want additional work put into the cemetery. Because right now we maintain it, on the average probably once a week.
Okay, well, let's take those one at a time. So let's talk about the GIS. Do we want to fund a GIS position? Or do we not?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. GIS position, we'd like to fund one. What's the other two, the summer student? Yeah. For the cemetery. Now, I get a lot of calls every year about the cemetery, and the condition it's in. People are unhappy. I mean, we did respond to the, gophers, and I think we actually moved pretty well on that because I've been up there several times and I've only seen one little tiny hole. Before it was like a bombed out shelter in there. So, at one point in time, and maybe Adam, you might remember this, and maybe even Dana, you might remember this. Ron Sherwood, he was a counselor here, but he worked up there for 6 months of the year to look after the cemetery on his own time. And that was, and the cemetery was really well looked after when he was up there. So it is one of the biggest complaints we have from a lot of people that are vintage to this valley. But, families that have people buried up there. So I think not only would the 6 month help keep the cemetery looking good, but it would also keep the varmints out of there as well. That's just my opinion. Councillor Charnock.
I agree. I think we have to have someone up at the cemetery, but if we're looking at 2 summer students, could one summer student be downtown doing whatever his or her duties are, and the other student 3 days a week at the cemetery and 2 days downtown? Because I think 3 days at the cemetery would be,
I don't think we
Really
need somebody
good.
up at the cemetery every single day.
No, so if they were there 3 days and 2 days, so you would have, you know, one person, 5 days a week downtown and the other 2 days a week downtown and 3 days up the cemetery.
We'll work with however you want to do
Yeah.
it. If you want to not have summer students, we managed last year. It wasn't great, but we managed. You want to fund any of the positions? things
Their
be better
grant,
than
their
that.
grant, right? If we can get grant.
We're not approved yet, so we do need
Yes.
to know whether or not it should be funded as a ratepayer expense regardless of the application or whether it's grant contingent.
Councilor Crozier. Yeah, I agree with Councilor Charney that just the 2 grant funded if we can. And have one of them downtown and then part of the time out at the cemetery. I don't think we need a full-time cemetery.
So a question that's in front of you, if the grant does not come through, how do
Then
you
we
handle
do-
this? So you're willing to take the calls for the cemetery when they come my way, because that's where they're gonna go. Oh, I'm dead serious. That's where
I think that we could have to consider at least one position.
I would consider one. I think that would be a good idea. And then if we get
In the
grant funding
event
for the
that we don't
second,
get the grant funded.
Seasonal?
of course seasonal.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need anybody up there during the winter.
So a one seasonal that is not grant contingent,
6 months.
6 months, cemetery and what else?
Weed eating. So Monday cemetery, Tuesday weed eating, Wednesday cemetery, Thursday weed eating.
So then one summer student then? Would we only need one summer student?
What I would say, one summer student out of taxation funding and a second if we get grant funding.
Right,
If we get grant funding,
right,
it's no skin, right?
that's right. So
So-
1, 2, and then a seasonal.
So right now,
Seven.
we're saying one paid for by taxation. And a second one paid for by grant funding. That's where we're
And
cool
if
with that.
both are grant funded, we could get 2.
Correct, but we won't know that.
That's right.
Kevin's got to have
Yeah.
the answer now, so.
Yeah.
So I will fund one and I will put grant revenue and the wage into the bylaws so that if we do get the grant, it's already in there.
Sure.
If we don't, it just washes. There's no
Yeah.
ratepayer input.
And what was the third one? No, we did the GIS already. I thought there was 3 things. There was the summer students, the GIS.
That was largely it, is to be able to sort of restore that level of service throughout the
Okay.
summer season.
Okay, so we're good there. So, any other questions on this? Not, we'll move to utilities. Go you. Oh, you again. He's back. Utilities in front of you. Any questions on utilities? Actually, I got a quick one for you as well, Mike, just real quick. Get you to turn your mic on there, Mike, please. Our pool chemical situation. What do we see every year in a percentage raise on our pool chemicals? I know every year that changes. And it's getting to the point where it's getting a little crazy. So are we seeing another, and maybe Ryan, you can help with this. Are we seeing another increase in our pool chemicals again this year? And are we able to possibly look at a more generic company that you don't want to say you want to go on the cheap, but you know, chemicals are getting pretty expensive from what I've seen.
Yeah, I have an example actually for the wastewater that I brought just to give you guys an idea. This is for ferrous, which we use for odor control and phosphorus removal at the plant. In 2021, we were paying $3,720 a load. And we just got another increase that this year it'll be $11,000 a load. So Kevin has reached out to the environment minister, basically, that ministry. We'd like to do some trial runs on some different products because even this stuff, this ferrous, we used to get it from Tree Island. It was a byproduct at one point that everybody wanted to get rid of, but because of what's going on down in the States,
right,
that mill isn't operating right now. So I think the last load we almost had to get from Texas, but we need to stay within spec. So we need to keep purchasing it or the spec, and then we have ministry people here. So it's gone, chlorine hasn't been that as bad as this yet, but it does go up every year.
Councilor Sherman?
Just under the infrastructure water capital, the 2 million for water meter project. is this grant money that we're talking here?
Correct. So there should be an offset in the 1-5 for that same project.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that was my big question there.
I have to show them separately. So the financial statements require us to recognize that they're not allowed to net anything.
And everything else is going on project, the pipe bridge replacement, we've heard about that, the Colshana water main, wastewater plan update, Thorpe water main looping, all that is still on target?
I think you've seen the drillers in town. They've been all over the place. I don't know if you've seen them, but they've been in town.
Those are for the dikers.
No,
Like-
no, they were actually in town. They were down by
Oh,
Super Save and other
oh,
places. So
okay. I've just seen them for the
They,
dike.
they've been rerouting, so that's been ongoing.
Okay. Okay.
Just a quick one, Mike, maybe you can answer this one. Lab work analysis, that is for like our water quality for federal regulations or, and our sewer. Cause I know you've got the bugs in there and they have to produce so much, so
Yeah.
that, are our are our costs have gone up on that, or are we still staying the same?
We actually, we used to send them to a lab in Kelowna.
Okay,
And what we've done, there was a lot of sampling done after the floods, probably more so than we needed. So we've gone back to what's required, which is every second week for our water quality.
okay.
But we still have to do wastewater samples weekly.
Okay.
So they all go over every week to a lab in Kamloops now.
Thank you. Councillor Turner, you're still on?
What is the situation on the compost site safety improvements?
I think we'll have a report for you very soon.
See ya.
Yeah, I can fill you in on that a little bit. We completed the water servicing to it, so we actually have proper fire protection down there now with hydrants. And we've run a tap line off of that to where the future building is being planned. And we're gonna do some more in-house work to expand the sprinkler systems and whatnot down there to keep the piles cool, I guess is the word. Instead of just having hoses laying out all over the ground. So that's sort of ongoing. We had budgeted last year, moving into this year to do the earthworks for the improvements to the road grade and whatnot in there. And we also have the other money that we were doing the site safety improvements, one of which included building for the a staff building up there. So we actually have a place for staff to report to work. That's something that you'll see in a report here soon with where that price is out. And it's just sort of continuing moving on with what we had planned, and everything's on one thing after another, depending on level of importance. So.
Any other questions on utilities? I noticed on the main sheet in the blue, it says people, costs and decisions. Do we need to address that?
So council wanted the opportunity to review the org chart, so it was integrated into every
Okay.
director's portfolio.
Is there anything in that section anybody has a question about or wants to bring up or anything? What the heck is a WW two PO level 1? Oh, thank you. Yeah. Sweet. Anybody have any other questions on that?
So council doesn't have any. I need a few minutes with you on water and sewer parcel tax rates. Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
Okay.
Backing us up to the question you had earlier about the inclusionary density and whatnot. I just sent everybody an email with documentation from the government saying it's required, and Pranesh has gone to print you a hard copy to distribute right now. So
Thank you.
we're getting that turned over right away.
Thank you. Over to you, CFO. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, so in our December package, well, even before that, so at the Audit and Finance Committee kickoff for budgeting, council had discussed the need to have kind of a matrix for decision making. And so in the December package, there was a table that ranged for water anywhere between $11 a year increase to 83. And on the sewer side, that ranged from 14 to 131. So just need some input as to what you would like to see in terms of bylaws for parcel taxes. This essentially is your contribution to water and sewer reserves for 2026. So we're at 176 for water and 220 for sewer.
Is that? You get that twice a year, right?
Twice a
So you
year.
get your water
No, parcel taxes are on your tax notice
annual,
in May.
oh, in July, right?
Yes,
And what is sewer right now? 220?
220. I think it's 220 and 50 cents, but
And what is the sewer? Or water and sewer?
so I think it's 176 and I think it's
Okay,
40
thank you.
cents as well.
Okay.
So essentially, this is trying to flush out what our infrastructure goals are. So I gave you a sense of what a 10-year cumulative contribution would be at that level that you're setting. So if you wanted to save, 10 million in the water fund, you would go across in the matrix and see that we probably need a $25 increase every year to achieve that. If you wanted 15 million, you'd do the same exercise. So it's really trying to see how much do we want to have available for grant matching? And then when we go to execute on an opportunity, anything that we don't save for will become debt. And so we'll have that burden that will have to then be funded out of the parcel taxes at that time. So
Councilor Richard?
Well, I was just thinking, I remember seeing that number, but I don't have it in front. And I was just thinking about trying to keep it to a reasonable amount, like 10-15%, I don't know, 25 each or something like that, but maybe we need more, I don't know.
Well, again, we've asked the community to go on quite an extensive journey over the last 2 years as far as water and sewer and the percentage rate. We're looking at a pretty nice rate this year. I understand we need, especially with our infrastructure aging. I mean, this can be revisited every budget, can it not?
we are only essentially setting 2026 in terms
Okay.
of the bylaws that'll come for you. I was trying to provide a longer term perspective so that you
Yeah.
can try and match up
Sure.
where you want to be. Yeah.
So for myself, I'm more than happy to go between 11 and 15 bucks. That's about where I'm willing to go at this time. Which considering we've asked everybody to go on this longer journey. So I mean, that's just my opinion. Councilor Olga. Oops, Councilor Olga.
Yep, thank you. So I do feel that we need to continue, putting, that money in reserves. So if we go with between the 10-15, what could be the percentage increase in these two expenses?
So at $15 a year, you would save 13 years for water.
We go with 15?
On the sewer side, 14 is kind of your lowest, that's 9 million. The wastewater treatment plant alone, the other things. So we just have to be aware of the opposite of whatever is here.
Sure. I'm just looking for input. What?
Yeah. I would go with, a little bit higher, so around 20.
Councilor Charney?
I agree, we have to put it up a little bit, but I just want to make sure next year, are we going to put it up again? And then the next year, we're going to put it up again. So I think so the annual increase, so in 5 years, it's going to be 100, if you go $20, it's another $100, $200 a year for the taxpayers.
But that can be changed every year if we so choose, can it not? Which just makes more work for you. Yes. Yes.
Right now, have enough debt. Water. Water line. And,
Right.
For that prioritizing. Reserve column, what allows stay at that scene.
Oh, sure.
So if you were to increase it $20, that's going into the reserve. What about cost and inflation for materials, et cetera? So it could be more than $20 per year that bill is going to go up. I mean, we're just directly looking at $20 for reserves. We're not looking at inflation, are we? Mhm.
So see you launch market plan and better understand that maybe.
Right, yeah.
So that project underway by better insight. Yeah. Which we get addressing. But you're right, the cost could very well be after 10 years, which would be. With inflation, so we're just setting the reserve fund. Trying to stay within our overall. That's.
Let's Rogan, give us a number.
I already gave the number, so I'm just thinking that when we talk about our financial position, we've made hard decisions in the past. We have to deal with tax increases to 11, 12%, but we can see the difference now. Now,
Yes.
we are in a way better situation than we were a few years back. So if again, I don't have anything against prior council, but if they have been doing that for specific 10 years, we would be in a much better situation right now. So we do need to keep putting that money aside to be able to have that benefit later on. So we will be in a better position later on. So I would say 20. I don't want to go a little lower because it's going to be minimum money that we will put aside.
Any opposition to the 20? That's right. You good?
I just wonder if that's enough. Like you say, we've been making hard decisions all along, but 20%, is that going to?
$20. No, 20.
Pardon me, $20. That's what I meant. I'm just getting tired now. Yeah, that's gonna make a substantial difference.
Well, I mean, obviously, fine. Yeah. So. The max. Side of it, yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
So I tried to apply is.
Okay, when you're talking about this sewer parcel tax, does that take into account the water as well?
Separate.
Okay, so we're looking at $20 there, and then how much in the water? How much?
20 across the line, 20 both.
$20 each.
Both go up by 20, so you go up to 240, 50 and 196. But that can be 196. And sewer would be 240, 50.
240, 50?
240, 50, 196.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Well, I mean, some of this infrastructure has been in the ground for 72 years. I mean,
get it, I get it.
You see some of these comments. And I mean, these comments, you want to, what? Good news, there's an election in October. Put your step forward. See how well you do.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to spend this money to keep this community going, right? Well, yeah, step right up. Step right up. Be more than happy to see anybody that leaves some of these negative comments step right up. It's easy to hide behind a note or a dot. Step right up, be counted. See how well you do. Anyway, I think it's a good, so we're agreed on the 20?
Yes.
Agreed on the 20. Okay. Anything else, CFO? Your mic's not on. There you are.
To how we want to navigate the PST impact from the provincial budget. So it's a smaller impact next year, given that it's contained to Q4, so it should only be in effect starting October 1st. But audit fees in my budget, accounting services, engineering across operations and our capital projects are all, anything related to accounting or engineering are now going to automatically attract an additional 7% increase in cost. So we can try and go through part of the year and begin preparing an amendment. We can try and take a high level swag in the bylaw now on what that Q4 impact will be. We can try and deal with 2027 and beyond when it's a full year impact, once we understand a little bit more as the year progresses. But I just want to make sure this is on our radar, that this is going to result in an increase in costs for the city. So we just have to decide when we want to deal with that.
So, while I don't agree with that change in the government, we have to to follow.
Mhm.
So we need to consider it right away.
Yeah.
So if we put it, knowing that it's gonna happen, it's going to impact us, but we don't do anything right now, it's gonna be a major impact later on. So we need to do that, consider it right away.
And what would the consideration be? Just
Some money aside.
what number are we looking at? What would be appropriate, CFO, that you think we should, like, I'm sure there's a goal pole that we should be aiming for.
So I think if we took a high level swag in the capital budget, the recovery budget, because they employ some accounting services within the ROC team, and on audit fees, we would at least have some coverage to get us going. But we're gonna have to really scrub that as the year progresses. I don't know that we can, touch and do a, 200-line analysis, but even addressing a provision in those three budgets, I think would help make sure that we have some coverage built into the bylaw.
So you're looking for a number from us.
No, I'll try and work
Okay.
through that. I
So you'll
just
bring
wanted to know
recommendation.
whether we
Yep.
want to try and deal with it now or
We should
later,
deal with it
or-
now. I agree. You might as well bite the bullet, right? It's coming anyway, so you might as well. 100%. Anything else? So I have a motion. Recommendation that council accept this report for information and discussion purposes and direct staff on decisions required for the preparation of bylaws. Councillor Ogun, Councillor Petrosi, any other questions on this? All in favor? Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.